I mean, obviously the big news here was, this is what I started with, was the flying debris. I think this says a lot if you do let go your lead artist that pretty much has revolutionized the artwork. I think we can all agree with that. So that's big. I doubt he did all of the concept art for every single mech ever and concept. And then also he did the concept art for other stuff too. Like, you know, I don't know if he did the environmental stuff, but anyways, my point being is it's a big telling here. Then obviously I'm just sort of like going through here. Armin Nuri, who used to be, he's a legit source. He used to work for him. I met this guy in real life. If he's listening to this recording, then hi. He basically said they laid off 60%, and that's on top of the last layoffs that they had. And then also the
do you remember the numbers? Sorry to interrupt you. Do you remember the numbers first? I think like initially it was like around 110, 105, and then like roughly 30 people were laid off.
Are you talking about
the first
before?
cutting, like
yeah,
by
and it was
AG7?
a weird, and it was a weird one too, because the timing was weird. And the reason I say that is because studios, when they finish projects, it is quite normal to downsize. They blow up contractors stuff. They're getting extra people hands on deck, getting things done. So this is where, you know, the timing for that, I think, and then they had to let go, but they also let go like Darren and other people. Armin, I believe he was let go when I think this was years ago. He was let go, or it might have been then. I don't know, my time frame in my mind sometimes. But the reason I bring why the next part is the more important part is layoffs suck. We'll get into why it's happening as well. But like Russ basically says, no, it's actually 30%, and we continue to work on DLC. Granted, he did not refute new MechWarrior games anymore. I did.
We can talk about that, but I'm just wondering, like, what's the head count?
I don't know. Let's just say they were 120.
If it's like down from 110,
yeah.
If it's down from 110 and then cut by 30, so that's like roughly 80. And then from that 80, if you claim like the 30% were let go from there,
yeah.
So
and we do have
like even
clarification.
More. It's down to like what 50 something developers left.
And so, well, you got to think. So Russ would be that. You'd have an HR staff. You're not letting go of some critical staff members. Like, I don't know if Matt Newman's a part of this. I don't know if
we'll probably find out in the coming days. Like,
but we know Tios is still here. For those that don't know, he mainly helps with MechWarrior Online. That's why I asked. The other part was he also works on all the other titles too. He's a 3D artist. So, but we also have Wyrot, aka Tori, in chat. He is a contractor for Piranha Games, and he does. He's been working on like Mercs and stuff. All he can say is the DLC comes out in May. He can't say anything about the other potential DLC that they had said they were working on, because the reason I said potential is because it officially hasn't been announced, other than just word of mouth, and that they were doing it.
Not PGI, AG7 did say in plural that, like in the previous like financial representation, that like they continue working on DLCs, and I think like both DLCs will be released. But like I said in chat earlier, I just don't think it moves the needle. And,
no,
like that's a separate thing.
But I mean, my point being is, we don't have any confirmation. It's highly logical that they finish Mech 5 Clans DLC. We don't know details or whatever. The other part was, so I asked him for clarification, the DLCs, I would assume that's what you're talking about. Is there any future plans with MechWarrior Online? Now, what I won't share this live on screen because I have private messages with other people, but I did DM Russ and ask him, and I guess I'll share it here sort of with you guys live. I'm not going to go into share all of my conversations on there, but this is from Twitter DMs, just so if you're wondering source, because I think sources are important. I said, would now be a good time to sit down and chat about MechWarrior moving forward? The response was, and I quote, actually a pretty bad time, to be honest. I don't know, maybe when we get this DLC 8 shipped in May, but it's all DLC news, and there won't be answers for what you're looking for. So that leaves me a little bit perplexed because Russ is a smart dude. He may not be able. There may be something in the works. He may have something planned for. And again, I don't know why you lead. And this sort of leads into I don't know why you'd let go of your lead artist for that.
That I think that indicates like a decision coming from like
Yeah.
EG7 more than like PGI to me.
Yeah,
At least like that's what it kind of says to me. Like
yeah.
I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but
Yep. And then that leads into, for those who don't know, this is a graph of basically just a bunch of numbers and money stuff, but this has to do right around this time frame is when Piranha Games was acquired by EG7. For those that don't know, if you're following with this for the first time,
that sudden growth, I do have to specify, is not just from Piranha Games. Like Piranha Games and Daybreak Studios got acquired, and Daybreak Games is the biggest like developer studio under like EG7 umbrella.
And there was a few others, and then the drop off here was obviously they had bought a bunch of stuff, so their value went high, and then performances have not been well. They are a public company. Me and you have talked about their public reports. They have quarterly reports, which is we've covered in previous videos. The big one here was basically, would you call this a hostile takeover? But
the private equity is coming in, and there's like a lot of concerns about like with shareholders and who owns how much can influence, how much influence is now like certain parts of the company have over the decision making and whatnot.
But they weren't
like
happy.
I actually we talked about this like 2 weeks ago. I said like big things are happening at EG7. EG7 is not doing at all well, and it's quite interesting to see implications like trickling down towards PGI.
Well, you had originally said,
as a result of that,
and this was your opinion, that you had originally said EG7 is a lot like other, where they acquire studios on their last leg, and sort of, I think that milk the IP for what it's worth. Is that a fair?
No, that might have been someone else. I'm not sure. Like I think EG7, when they acquired like all of those studios, they expected like them to be capable of delivering like very profitable titles down the line. But as you can see, like with PGI, it was just not enough. And with Daybreak, like the situation is even worse. Like I said, they have a bunch of titles, and all of those titles are essentially like maintenance mode. Lord of the Rings Online, DCO, Magic the Gathering Online, PlanetSide, like all titles that are now essentially like under maintenance mode and are barely like being developed. Like the only title, and I mentioned this like I think like a week ago or something, that was kind of semi-successful for Daybreak Studios was Palia. But like if you go and take a look at the numbers of that title, that's also like it's not something that's gonna maintain a company that size of Daybreak afloat. And given that Daybreak is like the biggest company under the EG7 umbrella, that's not really good. Their Marvel MMO got canceled. Their H1Z1 title that they were supposed to develop, like which was supposed to be like a slightly different game, there is no word of that, even though G-Ham like basically specified that he wants to develop that, he played that and whatnot. So a lot of like people in H1Z1, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the game. That's basically the battle royale that made the battle royales popular. That was supposed to be a zombie game, but later like split into 2 games, and the zombie game died off. And H1Z1 King of the Hill was basically the thing until like PUBG got released. And then after PUBG, Fortnite, and then H1Z1 just kind of died off.
Well, that's
and
what
they were looking. And listen, and they were looking to try to come back somehow back into that battle royale like setting with another successful game. So they developed PlanetSide Arena, and PlanetSide Arena flopped. So that's another flop like under their belt. The thing is, like Daybreak for quite a long while has essentially been unable to get like a single good profit bringing like title like under them. So they just have like a bunch of maintenance mode games and a bunch of flops, and they really don't know what to do with them. And that being the biggest company under EG7, of course, is going to bring like a lot of problems like to EG7. Like I think you were talking about Toadman Studios. Like EG7 originated from Toadman, and Toadman was allowed I think like even Kazdax, like during his like last month at PGI, was kind of contracted to work like on that Evil Weevil game that also like flopped immediately. Antimatter Studios that were also like under them were let go of. They were also developing some games. Like EG7 saw that like it was not going anywhere, and that like chances that like it was gonna be a good game was like relatively low, so they cut them off. Like people have to realize, like EG7 has been cutting off stuff, like quote unquote optimizing for quite a while,
Yeah.
and none of the studios under them were able to deliver like a title that was gonna bring in some serious revenue.
Yeah. No one
And of course,
crossed that barrier.
that's a very big problem for EG7. They have like a couple of other things that are not like necessarily game developer studios, but like even those companies like Petrol, I think, have reported some losses like in some of the previous times. So like none, I'm not sure. Like even the Big Blue Bubble, like the ones that were developing that mobile game, My Singing Monsters, was losing revenue compared to like what's happening before. So across like under like every company under that publisher under EG7 was not doing well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
PGI just kind of being there, somewhat successful, but I wouldn't say successful. I think just kind of, floating on the verge of profitability was just not enough.
Well, now that was the one of the things that, we've talked about, which is, what does success look like for Piranha Games? It's like, even though they've made money this past year, it may just not be enough in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, and when you have a studio that, and by the way, it says 50 to 60, it says recently reduced. So I think this is older numbers. I don't think that's from today. So you got to take, if it was, let's just take the high number 60 and you'd reduce that by 30%. So yeah, as far as the overall, that's why we were looking at this, is when the studios were acquired by EG7. And then what we're basically saying, and this is sort of the games industry in general, is how volatile it is, where like, right, how successful.
You can kind of see the curve, like right at the beginning of COVID, they started like the acquisitions, and then at the end of the COVID, like basically you see the chart like drop down quite sharply.
But I mean, some of this doesn't have to do with, again, Piranha Games necessarily. It's probably more to do with the bigger studios.
Like I said, like I think like both the, if I remember like the financial reports correctly, like My Singing Monsters, like that game was bringing in like very big revenue, and of course Daybreak was like a really big studio under their belt, so like that was where most of the revenue impact is coming from.
Let's get to the meat, Magic, because me and you have talked about, it's funny because we used to debate and not believe, I think me and you were both pretty adamant that MechWarrior 5 mercs.
You see not, hold on. I'll let you finish.
Me and you used to believe that MechWarrior 5 mercs was never more profitable than MechWarrior Online. Like, there's no way. Like, I remember me and you were like, we're skeptical. And then Russ had stated, no, actually, yes, maybe not an initial release, but now since all the DLCs, it has been more.
Is that why they ran out of money like essentially twice? So they had to like accept the pay cash from Epic Games. And then after that, Russ literally said like that they ran out of money.
But that was
like,
before
after
the
Heroes
EG7
of the Inner Sphere DLC.
Yeah.
So they got acquired by EG7. And so it seems to me like MechWarrior 5 was so successful that they had to like accept the Epic Games like cash inflow. And it was so successful again that like after the Heroes of the Inner Sphere, they had to get acquired by EG7. I don't know, Phil. Maybe it's not as successful as you think. Otherwise, they wouldn't have problems with like maintaining like revenue, not having to be
so you're saying is like
by a publisher.
Yeah, you're saying is like, why would they have sold if it was doing so well? I guess the argument could be is we know that Russ and all the shareholders of Piranha Games would get a very nice fat paycheck, and there was even milestones after the acquisition, I think, of like an extra 15 million Canadian or something like that if they hit certain milestones. And that was sort of my cynical take back then, was like all the stuff that was going on at MWO was really actually a part of the plan of just maintaining the population so that it looks good on the shareholders and EG7 proper, especially after we had a few instances where, like, I remember that one time we had a drunk stream and Russ popped on at like 3 a.m. Eastern. You guys remember they're still in COVID. It was like 2020. And this might have been probably May or June or something, and Russ was like, man, you guys are still playing this game, like surprised there was this many people in chat and interacting. And I was like, yeah, man, this is a great game. We bitch and complain about balance and this and that, but like just know that it's out of love. And so I've always sort of taken the cynical route when it comes to that. Is I think that was the plan, is just basically keeping the status quo and keeping things running. And that's why we got the initial reaction that we did from the MWO player base, and the numbers went up. And then, as we've sort of stated, they didn't really ever put money into it until what, 2-3 years later, where we eventually got Event Queue. They removed Solaris. They actually physically did a lot of like programming. But I guess the question I'm going to ask you is, what is the future here of MechWarrior? Because if I read it, maybe I'm reading into that message of Russ, but if he's saying there's no
think
new...
you are. I think he was very specific, like in his wording there, and that's quite interesting. But like I said, I do think like DLCs are going to get finished, like both of the DLCs. But like I don't think they're gonna develop like a new game, if that's what you're implying, like from what he stated there.
Yeah,
I mean, they
like
I just don't see it. Right?
They can do, and what I mentioned like in chat, and like we basically got this from Darren as well, is that they can continue to develop the existing titles indefinitely. So if they do want it to get like a major revamp of like MechWarrior 5 clans, and like even expand the MechWarrior 5 clans in like any way they want, they can do that. Like there's nothing preventing them from doing that necessarily.
Other than
at least like from what we know,
capital to be able to pay your employees to develop
capital. And now what sucks, and now the situation that sucks, like even though after the Heroes of the Inner Sphere, EG7 probably did help like PGI a lot, like both with publishing and with financing, get like all the DLCs along the line, out, and delivered to everyone. But now you get to see the other ugly aspect of what happens when the publisher is not doing that well. And if you're not performing well yourself, well, then you experience like what you just experienced. Like the annoying part is that I feel like if PGI had a more successful game on their lap, like they didn't need to be acquired by EG7. They didn't need the cash inflow from Epic Games. Like that's kind of my thing. I feel like sometimes it's not enough to deliver like an okay game. Sometimes you have to deliver like a good game if you expect to stay afloat.
So you're saying is, prior to and again, this is just speculation because we just don't know, you're saying that the reason they sold their company to EG7 was because they weren't sitting on a mountain of cash. They ran out of financing. Yeah, they weren't. They had to, so that, but then that begs the question is like, was that, yeah, I mean, I still, I go back and, we talk about MechWarrior Online and the development throughout the years, and I mentioned Solaris earlier in chat. You can talk about faction play, a bunch of stuff, but like, I think
sorry to interrupt you again. I apologize. I really do. I don't want to. Like the whole claim that MechWarrior 5 was so wildly successful and that it directly led to PGI getting acquired by EG7. Sure, that could have been a decision, but like, if there's so much success, why would you want to share like your profits with like a publisher?
Because what if success at getting a big fat paycheck as a company? I mean, why does anybody sell their...
It's possible, but then again, like if you're so certain in your product and in your profitability of your product, why would you like go to a publisher to get acquired by it?
Yeah, I mean, again, we don't know. We don't know if EG7 approached them and said, hey, we love what you're doing and we want to get behind this. And also too is I would go on a limb and say, I'm not a business person, I don't know this but let's just say, I'm assuming because of their success of MechWarrior Online, actually, it wasn't Mech 5 that sold EG7. It was MechWarrior Online success and the potential success of Mech 5. I think that's a key thing, right? Is the potential, hey, here's this Canadian company. They made, they were one of the first founders as far as like, financial stuff using the founders program. They got a bunch of capital. They've had a successful free-to-play title. Granted, Mercs was out in 2018 and they weren't acquired until, and again, I don't know the exact dates, but like EG7 didn't come in until after Mercs was already.
EG7 came in after Heroes of the Inner Sphere DLC, so you can check like when, like we don't know when the talk started, but
but my point being is
happened after it.
Russ on the podcast did state, he said, look, we had to, which is crazy, and he said we had to take the the Epic Game Store because we needed capital. We needed like however much that was, the deal was to be an exclusive for a year. My thing would be is, if that's true, then what was pulling so much money out of, was their operating costs just too high from, because I think peak MWO is what, 2015, would you say? Was that?
Yeah. Roughly.
So I think what they did is they used all the profit and money that they had made from MWO clearly, and we're using that to develop Mech 5. That's a no-brainer, of course. That's how a business operates. But I think the development cost took a lot longer. The time took a lot longer. And I think they just needed that. And I think that was like a stopgap solution, because he did say that he said, devs, if you're listening, don't take this if you don't have to, because he said it was a mistake. He did say it was a mistake.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. But like, I don't know how it can be a mistake if they're basically running out of money.
Well, because I think it shoehorned. I think what he's saying is we absolutely had to do it because we needed a little bit more time on target. But ideally, you just go right to Steam and you just don't have to, yeah.
I mean, I think it's like kind of unfortunate, like the whole, both like I kind of feel for PGI in that way, where they're kind of forced by Microsoft to release the game on Game Pass. They're kind of, they run out the money, so they're forced by EGS to, go Epic's game is exclusive initially. Like those are big things, and like the first one impacted like Mercs probably quite a bit. And the second one impacted clients quite a bit as well.
I know ChatGPT isn't always accurate, but I did ask about Game Pass, and it said probably not as much as what you think.
It's possible. Like either is possible, honestly.
Yeah, and let me scroll up here, because I did ask it, because that was my impression, is that Game Pass impacted Clan's launch, but it might have. But what might have also happened is the motion capture. I mean, you heard Russ say they set up a whole studio. You're hiring actors, you're doing all this, the cinematic team, how much it costs, they were hiring, all that. So there was probably other costs as well that drove up cost of development. And so, then you're looking at who's setting expectations, because I asked, I think, is it EG7's expectations or PGI's internal? Because EG7 says it didn't meet,
in this case.
Yeah, it didn't meet our expectations. But
now that you're under the publisher, it's just like EG7.
Yeah,
there's no question about that.
It's like, and it's funny because we talk about business this, business that. Basically, if I'm looking at this from the outside, is in EG7 made business decisions thinking that they were going to acquire these studios, and that their initial investment in doing so would pay off in the next few years, and they'd have some blockbusters. Clearly, that hasn't happened. I mean, yeah, it doesn't look good when they're asking studios across the board to cut costs. This is the second cut to
they let go
Piranha Games,
and closed 3 studios so far, I think.
Yep. Yeah, we were just looking at that.
Toadman, Antimatter, and I can't remember.
Well, and then remember the Nova thing? This was, for those who don't know, Nova was a Russian publishing platform, and it just was like, I think they inked the deal.
I think that, and then Ukraine, I think like the whole localization thing was kind of a mistake, and I think like multiple people said it like ahead of time, regardless of like which country you expect. Like I don't think it would have brought in. Like, so yeah, you have like a localized, let's say it was a German version. So what? People from Germany can already play the game.
Yeah.
Like
they already speak English. You're fine. Also, on top of that, so that was a negative as well. But man, I guess, there's always misinformation out there as far as like, people are still confused about who owns the IP and stuff. Just to clarify, if you're listening, you don't understand it. Microsoft owns the IP rights to digital like products, like games, like video games, right? Microsoft does. So a studio right now could go to Microsoft, give them a sales pitch, a pitch about whatever, and Microsoft could give them a license to be able to create whatever, whether it's Mech Commander, Mech Assault, another MechWarrior title, whatever it is. Okay, that's how easy it is. The other side of it.
Okay, go ahead.
The other side of it is it's no longer Tops, by the way. It's Fanatics owns. Fanatics bought Tops, which Tops then had licensed out the tabletop stuff to Catalyst Game Labs. Catalyst Game Labs is the one who handles that, which I believe is Lauren L. Coleman and Randall Bills, right? I think those two run Catalyst Game Labs, from my understanding. I may be incorrect there. So that's really the split of the IP, is because people make it into more than it's that. And it's really not that complicated. Also, people feel like, oh, well, Piranha Games has the license, no one else can. It's like, that's not true. Unless there's an agreement in their license, which we will never know because that shit is not public.
I want to talk about this briefly. And people who have been following like HBS closely can confirm or deny it. But I got this like from multiple people, so I think it's correct. So
let's hear it.
This is how it went. HBS developed BattleTech 1.
Yep.
Is like a financially very successful product, right? Then they got acquired by Paradox. Paradox did not want to develop BattleTech 2 despite HBS wanting to develop BattleTech 2.
True.
They developed Lamplighters League. The game flopped. They got let go by Paradox. They tried to acquire a license from BattleTech 2 from Microsoft, but were denied. Now, I'm not entirely sure about that last part, but I had multiple people saying that to me, that after, not during their acquisition by Paradox, but after they were let go, after they went like separate ways again, they tried to reach out to Microsoft and were denied the license. Do you know anything about that?
No, I from what I heard was that basically what you said, everything in agreement, HPS wanted to do it. Paradox basically said no. My reasoning, I think this is just me off the top of my head, is Paradox wanted to, they want their own IPs. I get it.
Which makes sense. I can understand like Paradox wanting their own IPs.
Yeah, because for those who don't know, if you are doing anything, when you're paying the IP license, we don't know what that detail is, by the way. We don't know if it's like 10%, 20%, whatever. Obviously, clearly with MechWarrior 5 clans and mercs, those had to be on Game Pass, right? So even if you have a loss on those as far as initial sales, you can make up in DLCs or whatever. But at least Microsoft deal with Piranha Games is they have to be on Game Pass. Okay, so you're Paradox. You don't want to take a 30% cut on Steam, and on top of that, whatever deal you have to have with Microsoft. They just didn't want it. So what we don't know is why they made that decision when BattleTech was successful. Now, what we don't know is how successful. And what I mean by that is, if BattleTech sold so well, but if you're a small studio and your game sells 1 million copies, and I you still took
like closer to 2.5 or million in case of like BattleTech.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if you only earned 50% of that, that's still good for a small studio. But if you're then acquired by this basically a publisher, if you will, they don't want a 50% cut in their revenue, right? So like that's just not good enough for them. Does that make sense?
I understand. I'm talking about the moment after HBS was let go.
Hear that
after they reconstituted, essentially, and now they're working on a completely like entirely different game.
I think I pinged Mitch about that, and I didn't get that response. My response from them was, we wanted to do one, and I saw the other post on like Reddit and stuff and forum post, and that's where the information came out, is actually no, we wanted to do a BattleTech 2, but Paradox didn't, and Paradox overrode and so forth and so on. So I didn't hear about them trying to reacquire or re-get the license
after they were let go.
I did not hear that.
That's why I'm.
But then also, what does that mean? Is that because they just didn't have a good enough pitch? Is it because they were asking Microsoft to maybe help foot the bill? Was it because there was a deal in the license that
that's kind of what I want to know.
We just don't know.
I want to know if Microsoft denied like HBS from getting the license
Well, let's
for
just say
BT2 after they were let go from Paradox. After Paradox does not really impact anyway.
And again, this is just unknowns. I mean, they're IP squatters. That's what I've been told is Microsoft is IP squatters. But like, is it because financial reasons? Is it because you're going to have another studio do it? Is it like, why wouldn't they if they've had an proven track record? I don't know. And again, Jordan Wiseman is no longer with HBS. Maybe that was one of the pulls because he had people, but also Mitch Gittleman is an ex Microsoft, he knows people in that industry. So I don't know.
Unfortunately, I haven't been following like the HBS situation closely enough to know like everything that's been going on that side. I kind of wish I did. Because like I said, I've heard from multiple people that after they were let go by Paradox, after they reconstituted, they attempted to reach Microsoft
that's not what I heard.
To develop like BT2.
Yeah, that's not what I heard.
Denied. I could be wrong. This could be like completely wrong. But like if someone can confirm it, like that would be very nice.
Yeah. But I mean, outside of that,
or deny it.
If it was, if that was confirmed, that is interesting because basically what does that mean for, because let's just say Russ, I mean, because last podcast he said he had good relations with him, right? And that was 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago in a few months is the last time I sat down with him and chatted. He said that he has good relations. He basically said, and I like, why wouldn't they, work with us? We have a good relationship. So, when that time comes, I don't see any issues. That's basically what he said.
Okay, and why did they have to develop like the game under the Mech 5?
Because they would have had to renegotiate. So they started.
And why would that be a problem? They have a good relationship with them.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's because of that's just how licenses work. Like if you have the license to do something. So like right now, let's just use you have a license that ends in 2027. Do you start negotiating 2026? I don't think so. Also. There again, I'm not. We're just
I know
speculation. We just don't know
100% sure here.
And we also MechWarrior. How many people at Microsoft Games, or even who's in charge of all that, even know anything about BattleTech MechWarrior? I guarantee, almost no one. Like it's such a low on the.
Don't say it.
It's such a.
Don't say it.
It's such a very small community and
core
audience,
IP. Very, very core audience. It's all about the IP. It's IP's fault. It usually is, of course, and then Mech Games on top. Like it's so very core audience thing indeed.
Okay, we just got an update while we're doing this. All I can say is that yes, we still have the license, and yes, it was recently extended. By the way, we are working on MechWarrior before the layoffs and continue to work on MechWarrior today. The specifics you have to wait until the product announcement, as always.
Okay, we know those two things, but like their license being extended
is that for MechWarrior Online? Is that for Mech 5?
Well, we don't know the details of the license, but that means that they do have the license going past 2025 because the license did expire in 2025. So that means they got an undisclosed extension for whatever period of time.
The question is capital. Is EG7 able to do that? Do they have to do a Kickstarter? Do they have to ask Microsoft hey, we want to make a Mech Assault game, which by the way, I think a lot of people would probably like, but it's definitely different than MechWarrior. That's fair. But my point being is if you could get Microsoft to fund the project and you build it for them, then there's a win-win because your studio is getting paid, you're making money, and you get a new product out there. We don't know. This is why, damn it, Russ, just get on here and tell us, should we be... Here's my issue. I don't read hopeful out of that. I have more questions about that. Does that mean good? Does that mean bad? Does this mean we actually just don't know? You're going to have to, what do you read in that? I don't.
No, I just read that they will continue developing DLCs for MechWarrior 5 as long as they can. But the conclusion from their previous developer, the one, the 3D artist, Aaron, that was there earlier, is that saying that PGI is moving away from MechWarrior games. I don't know how correct that is, that is
what would
like
they
a big
do?
question mark.
Dude, what would they
they can kind of go back to doing like what they used to do, like essentially be contractors for like other studios and like develop
they could do that.
multiplayer component for Duke Nukem Forever or whatever, you know.
Which is a part of the industry. Yeah, studios do it all the time. There's
and some PGI developers like and Aegis 7 did say this on multiple occasions, and this was happening like in PGI. We're working on other projects like under the company. So like for example, Krasdax, like I said, was for some time working on that Evil v Evil vampire third-person shooter game that Toadman was developing before Toadman was closed off. Toadman was working on PlanetSide 2 for some time after they were let go, and like some developers were kept in and they started working as contractors for PlanetSide 2. So you kind of see that EG7 is handling like studios that are under them and bringing them to some other projects that may need help, like with something if they feel the need, like that's necessary. But they can also probably contract out to like X company outside if some other company needs help with some product. Like you see it happen like all over Canada with like various Canadian developers. Like they work on like AAA games, but they're not like the main studio. They develop like the 3D models for it, or like something else. Like
I think it's important to clarify that because people see things like that's why I said the original layoffs came after they had just released something, and I'm like, that's actually typical. And if you're outside of most industries, that's a bad sign. You just laid off a bunch of people. But it's like, yeah, but that could be a large majority of like contractors or bloat from like doing a project. Someone says, so if PGI abandons the MechWarrior license, someone else can pick it up. Well, first off, like that's not how someone else could come and pitch to Microsoft. I think so
it
many
depends only if the Microsoft will accept them or refuse them.
Yeah, but I mean, let's just say, I don't know, name a studio that you'd want to see do a MechWarrior game. If they came to Microsoft, I highly doubt Microsoft would probably turn them away. But the question is, who else is lining up? I mean, you had HBS when they did BattleTech, but we haven't seen anybody else step up into that stuff other than, fan projects outside of that. So, it's interesting, his wordage here. He says the specifics you have to wait until the product announcements. Now, the only other thing I can think of here is
DLCs.
Honestly, I mean, but is he alluding to that's all we're doing? Because if they can... I mean, it's going to be really tough. Well, even though PGI has like a lot of the bones developed for a potential like new game, like they're working with like basically at half strength than what it used to be 2 years ago, when like the company had like over 110 developers. Sure. But if you're doing DLCs, you don't necessarily need your lead engineers anymore because it's already done, right? Like you just need mission.
Well, if you want to develop like something new, then you probably would. If you want to keep printing out like the same stuff over and over again ad infinitum, then you probably don't. But like it really depends.
Yeah. So then next question. People keep asking about MechWarrior Online.
MechWarrior Online is indirectly affected, but not as directly affected as people think. Now, people have to have in mind that like since like some 3D artists were left go, that means that like anyone who's left working there has a bigger workflow assigned to them. So I'm not like entirely sure what that's gonna mean like down the line, but you have to see like MechWarrior Online in a way where it's kind of like leeching from the other DLCs and MechWarrior 5 mercs and clans that's being released. Like usually like the stuff that's developed for that trickles in over towards MechWarrior Online, for example, like Arrow 4 Naga, that trickles down to MechWarrior Online. It wouldn't be developed separately for MechWarrior Online, but instead it's developed there and then it comes over here like slowly.
Oh, look at like even the Stone Rhino. I was speculating that would be in clans and it hasn't yet. So you're like, oh, okay, so they can bring that over there.
It is coming. I think it is coming. They're just like kind of like slowly like
got him. That's what we were talking about. That's what we were talking about. The other also confusion I think it's to talk about is, and I think it's rightfully so, a little bit of confusion because of the last podcast I did with Russ. was people are like, well, when are they going to hand it off to the community? You know, because and I don't think they're going to be able to.
Mean hand it off?
No,
to the
I don't think they can.
What's the implication of that?
Well, legally, I don't think they can. One, they're Canadian companies, so they fall under different laws, and also EU rules. When you buy something like if you bought this mech, that's your mech legally in a lot of countries, European. And so even if I don't think this game will ever get, I don't think they can do the Mech 4 treatment to hand it off to MechTech to run their servers and do whatever. That's what I'm saying. I think some people are like, hand it off the community. Well, they already sort of have in a sense because the Cauldron is doing the changes. The difference is Cauldron doesn't have access to the, their build, and they're not pushing out updates and stuff. So I think for one thing we don't know, Magic, is last time Russ said, he basically said the game keeps the lights on. And even if it is like a net plus as far as cash, it's probably not huge.
I'm guaranteeing it. I'm not just gonna say how it was definitely a net plus in cash.
Yeah. You think people are still that
I'm saying that it is a net plus in cash, and it was like in 2024, it was in 2023.
Yeah, but how much is that? Is it comparable to sales of a DLC?
It's kind of hard to put a comparison on it because I have
Who's your source?
Some amount of inside info that I can't share.
Oh well,
it was told in privacy, and if I share it's gonna be a problem.
No, I mean, but that's a good thing. My point being though is, if what Russ said is here, again, I don't know. You asked a question. Would I buy a DLC for a multiplayer? One, I don't think you should sell that if it's Mech 5 Clans. I think you should release it as free.
Just to interrupt you there, the problem is if you can sell that, then how can you justify the development costs?
Because people would have to buy because people have to buy the game.
Yeah, you think that, but PGI got people used so much to the current DLCs that it's kind of hard to make that jump.
I mean, they're a lot more lean than they've ever been.
Do you understand what I'm aiming at? Let's say I completely understand all the problems that were happened with the what's the Trials of War DLC? Was that the name of the DLC if I recall correctly? Right? That was the name of the DLC, right?
Sir, don't you say DLC at the end of that. That is, come on now.
That was an official DLC. That was the name of the quote-unquote DLC. I understand it, Phil, and that's why the first time I made a really important distinction between do people have problems with game modes being paywalled, or do people have a problem with the value proposition? So is it a problem that it's not $1, or is it a problem that the game modes are being locked behind a paywall?
I would say
usually I did not get a very clear answer to that. But the problem that brings is that if PGI is supposed to develop a giant multiplayer component for free and no one is going to pay for it, can they even develop it in the first place?
You don't want to fracture your community. A lot of games have learned from this.
I know. I've seen Battlefield do dumb stuff like that, and they had locked multiplayer modes behind the DLC. But if you don't have the money, and they clearly don't, how do you justify developing a multiplayer component, a proper expanded multiplayer component, without people wanting to invest money into it? After it gets
I go back to DRG,
and what if it doesn't succeed? Then you just develop that you just spent a lot of your resources for essentially nothing, for free. I completely get the argument. I also think it should be free. I think it should be completely
free. You're
free.
Saying the precedent was set. Yeah, you're saying the precedent was set, and so then it's very hard to backtrack. Well, here, but also too is then you read the room wrong.
That is something that PGI does a lot, but they still have to justify.
I agree. I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is two wrongs can also, I mean, both things can be true. I think I even when I was talking about multiple times, I'm like, hey, Magic's had a point. They provided certain things, game modes in DLC that you had to have, Beachhead and so forth. But I think my concession was, yeah, but they also, like, that was just a small part. They also added a bunch of other this. Whereas, let's be honest, now we know, because of EG7 reports, clans didn't do well. It felt rushed. Why did it feel rushed? Because it was rushed. Love you, Tori, in chat. I know he may defend this or that. I don't want to put him in a spot, but the reality of it is it felt like a cash grab, because it was a cash grab. And then I remember being told on a call with someone I felt that was a friend that I was stirring the shit, and I was the only one. And I'm like, go fucking look at Steam reviews. My point being is I'm a little bit personal connected, because I got told,
that's completely understandable.
that I was, and I'm like, yeah, I just wanted to be like, oh, okay, we'll burn the bridges. I don't really care, because I feel like I'm in the right. And then fast forward and we see the reports. By the way, it was a wonderful gift, right, to the community. It's like, no, you guys fucked up. It's okay. Just admit you're wrong. Like, I do it all the time. If I'm wrong, if Magic, you come say, hey, Phil, you did this, or you said this, remember, I'm like, yeah, I can admit. But anyways, my point being is, I digress.
Just one question. How do you suggest that they develop like a multiplayer component separately?
I don't think they're going to.
I don't think they are, but like I'm just wondering, like, how would you suggest that they develop that without being able to monetize it?
Well, first off, I think Tori said it in chat. You release it with the DLC, but it's free. You come out with another DLC.
But then you're developing the DLC storyline single player, and that's like a side thing.
What I think is tough here is that. Do
you understand like what I'm aiming at?
What I'm saying is that what's tough here is that you have to be able to sell something. And so that's what DLCs are for, generally speaking. If it's
that's the model that they chosen, like that's the model they depend on. That model.
I know, but they chose a premium model for clans. And by the way, as a studio, do you try to predict the win, or do you see where the wind's taking you and then you make adjustments? I think you have to do a little bit of both, right? I mean, if you're projecting, you're saying, I think this is the way to go, so this is the direction we're going to. And then you have, we're being taken this direction, we got to make the adjustments from there. The question would be, is there even a precedent for online play? What does that look like? Do you just let the community handle? That's another thing I've sort of wondered, is like, let the community do it.
I think PGI's answer to that was no. And that Trials of War DLC, like, even further, like, enforce that conclusion.
I'm calling BS. I said this in chat. I don't think they were testing, and that was a test bed for them to gauge whether or not people are interested. One, it wasn't a fucking PvP
you understand.
mode.
They were just like low on money, and they wanted to get a little bit more money, so they quickly developed like those two. 100%. They tried to monetize.
Yeah, I think they just tried to monetize. It was a bad look. I'm the one who fucking died on the hill, saying as much. But my point being, I'm all for like speculating this and that, but the proof is in the pudding. We saw the EG7 reports. We saw that they weren't happy with it, blah, blah, blah. You just read the room. It's like, yeah, it was rushed. Granted, as I've told, Torius stated, the clan's tools are so much better than Merc's tools that they have. So it allows them to iterate. Well, my thing is, if they could do it that quick, they could have made changes to what? We haven't seen any changes to the game modes, by the way, really, at all, or additions to it, right? If it's so good, and so many, like I said, I'm all for them hitting. Let me take a step back here. I want PGI to fucking knock our socks off. I've wanted this from the very beginning. I want them to blow our minds with a faction play that makes me feel like I'm back in EVE Online, I'm addicted, and we've got problems because I have kids now, right? I don't like being the guy that just is like, yeah, but this is what it is, But as far as how could they do clans, instead of them taking on that burden, let the community do it. Create an API, and then that people can host their own servers and do whatever the fuck. And then you can just let that community do what they want. I don't understand that, because it's a premium. If it was a free to play like MechWarrior Online, yeah, that's a problem. But if you're doing Mech 5 clans and you want to do a multiplayer edition, I say API. I'm out of my off the skis here. I don't really know, but just let the community do it. Focus on your stuff, focus on mechs, new missions, blah, 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 or pivot and be like, hey, there's really not a whole lot of, I don't know, other than you'd have to buy the base game And then what incentive does a multiplayer person have to buy in the others? That's where they have to come up with a business model. That's what you're saying, Magic, is that wasn't the business model they chose. But like, again, I think you'd have to, where's the tide taking you? Where's the wind taking you? You got to make, you know, does that make sense? Like,
I mean, the thing is, like, the clans were from the beginning, and PGI was pretty public about this, was always supposed to be like a very linear, like, storyline game from the get-go. And PGI was public about it, and then like even have Russ on a couple of occasions talking about like MechWarrior Online being the, you know, quote unquote online PvP component, and MechWarrior 5 Mercs being the sandbox component, and then MechWarrior 5 Clans being like a linear storyline component, and that's how like those MechWarrior games like live. But I'm not sure. I think that's the best way to go forward, and like that like Daybreak Studio guys that you talked to some time ago said that they would benefit a lot from like those games being consolidated like into one.
Yeah. So to clarify what he's talking about. So, are you still on that server, by the way?
Yes. Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah, I left. Yeah, that was a community manager at a different, bigger studio. Daybreak Games. I'm not going to name any names, but he helped.
I mean, you don't like, he's public. Like, I don't think you have to like hide his name.
No, my point being, all he said was because he basically said is I don't know why they have 3 different products. He's like, I would have just expanded on the, you know, like just had everything under one roof. And I was like, yeah, I know. But and moving forward, maybe that's what Russ does. Again, this statement right here, it does leave me questions. I don't know if it's necessarily just DLC. It could be. But here's the thing. They don't need an extension for that. So to me, this word right here, and then specifics, they wouldn't need a extension to do another DLC. If my understanding of their license is that they can indefinitely do MechWarrior Online, they can definitely do Merc stuff, they can indefinitely do clan stuff.
Yep.
So that right there basically says, I think what they're, complete fucking speculation on my part, I think what they're going to need to do is find a funding source. I think that's the issue. I don't think it's EG7 right now.
EG7 is not going to provide like any financials. Because they will just observe their performance. If they're profitable enough, they'll
what did
keep
Russ
them as
say?
it is.
He said
but
30,
they're not going to do like a massive like money injection.
Russ
like,
said 30 million, and that was how many years ago? So, and now he knows what actually it would take. So I think if I'm waving my wand and like projecting into the future, what maybe he's looking at is that I think the Mercs route with what the latest DLC was successful for a few reasons. One, the game had a ton more to do because of all the previous DLCs, right? It's still Pokemech, by the way. I just want to toss it out there. It's still Pokemech. But that being said,
the core gameplay
yes,
is Pokemech,
and they need to update that because I think it's as wide as an open or shallow as a puddle and wide as an ocean. It's super shallow. That being said, I think the Shadow Karinsky shows you that now you're bringing the cinematics quality, which by the way, I still think is a net positive for the franchise and PGI. I just think it's a big investment that they took, but a good one. I think that sets now that sets the bar for what we as players expect, and I think they could take it even further than that. But what allows them to work is they're taking a do whatever you want. You can travel in a sphere, take contracts, do whatever you want, and then we can inject these DLCs that gives you that storyline that you wanted, but in a controlled small amounts, and then we can do another one, and then do another one. Whereas in the meantime, you can just go do what you want. I think if you're asking me what works really well, and then maybe you have an online thing separate as far as that just lets people play whatever. And if they're smart, you would not try to dictate that. You let the community run their own thing. Again, it's some type of API system, some type of server hosting, whatever. If someone wants to run an MBT league, let them fucking do it. Someone wants to run a no heat, unlimited ammo, let them do it. Let them play. It doesn't really matter. Like, and then that way you're just funneling new mechs, maybe new equipment pops online when stuff comes out. Does that make sense? Like, to me, I feel like if I look at Mercs, MWO, and clans, and you smashed them all together, which is pretty much what they almost did, except for the MWO part. In the latest DLC, I think that's what success might look like if they do a MechWarrior 6 Mercenaries, or, you know, because outside of that, they're clearly the storytelling isn't enough. You need storytelling and other shit to do in the meantime. And what does your BattleTech fans want? They want BTA, they want Rogue Tech, they want Bex, then they want all the yet another mech lab. I will still say, I'll die on this fucking hill, we need some innovation when it comes to a lot of that stuff. The UI, Clans UI even got even more complicated in my opinion. People misunderstood what I basically said, which was they already created a Mech 4 mech lab and you're just adding extra shit that you don't need. You already did it. It's right there visually. Yeah, so I don't know if you know. So I think
we know for sure that PGI, I think like this is pretty certain. If they wanted to do it, they could literally make a spin-off game. Let's call it like MechWarrior 5, not clans, not mercs, but let's say factions. I know that's not the best title, but like just say call it like factions.
You're saying
and
like Mech 5 clans factions, because I think they have to include clans in it. I think that's where probably their license.
To cut clans. They would have to cut clans.
I don't think
you think they would have to put clans in front of it.
I think legal. Right? Yeah, I think that's part of their license. Like I think that's where if you want to do anything
it's
new,
not like just MechWarrior 5, but like MechWarrior 5 plus
I don't know.
C or M.
Don't know. That would be
like
a great clarification for on my understanding right now, because of Darren, and maybe he misspoke. But as far as on stream, he basically said we can indefinitely do MechWarrior Online content, we can indefinitely do mercs, and we can definitely do clans. I don't, you know, or something to that extent. So
he did not specify that they have like basically the license for MechWarrior 5. And then as long as the game is named like MechWarrior 5 and then
I think that's why we didn't get
something else.
Yeah. I think that's exactly
I understand. I understand as well, but I'm just saying that you could get like another quote unquote different game. That means it's not inside clans or inside mercs, but under the MechWarrior 5 title that could like encompass like all of these elements.
Meta, what was that?
MechWarrior 5 Legends.
I mean, they could do it. They could do it, but like I think,
but I mean,
like, it's also not a good title.
So okay. But that's just a small piece, because let's just say they do that. To me, you need more. I mean, again, that unless you, because MechWarrior Online's still here. In my opinion, I've said this and I need to make a video. I still think MechWarrior Online has had the best PvP experience we've had in any MechWarrior title. I'll say that again for all of you people out there. That's why we still play the damn game. That's why we, you know, there's something to be said about the online experience. It could improve, of course. But okay, so whatever you're doing has to be better than what we currently have that we can play right here, right? Or at least be similar of. And again, I've talked about this yesterday. Someone was talking about, and I'm like, no. What you're talking about is like, I'm not talking about MW2. I'm saying, imagine if we had a different game mode. Imagine a reinforcement game mode or respawn game mode. Imagine a combined arms game mode, that it wasn't this arena 15-minute matches, you're stuck in this little bowl. You can do a lot of things. I was like, that's game design. It's like, what is your gameplay loop? Right now, the gameplay loop with like MechWarrior 5 Mercs is Pokemech. Phil, what are you talking about? It's the whole point is just to do missions, collect mechs, repeat. Like there's no end game material. There's no upgrades to your drop ships. There's no crew logistic stuff that you can do in some of the BattleTech modded stuff.
I think like PGI could lean in so much into like persistent universe thing a bit, and I really wish they did. I think like faction play failing in MechWarrior Online was the biggest thing that hurt the game. And it was also like, you know, filled with like different kinds of like bad designs. But like for a future MechWarrior game, and I'm talking about like both maybe the multiplayer, but even more so the single player component, having your actions impact the decisions of like various factions and standings of various factions, and being able to influence like which faction, you know, gets control over which area, or like all of a sudden you capture this planet, now you have access to like these mechs and whatnot. Like even in single player, it would be much better than what we have currently in Mech 5 Mercs, where like the only consequence of your actions are like higher prices, essentially, like in the factions that you were fighting against.
You can get access to stuff if you do align with one, but then it ruins your. It's got to be more to that. I mean, again, it's like it allows you to have tools
They
or
did
access to
start
certain
like
things.
making very, very small steps in that direction, but
Yeah.
it was nowhere near enough.
Yeah. Well,
Like you have to, but I think that's also the reason, because they want the map to reflect like lore 1-to-1. They don't want to do a thing where, okay, the map is lore accurate, like in this year, and they did it mostly because of the storyline. Like, I don't know, take whatever year you want,
Yeah.
and then after this, like, player can kind of shift
Well,
and go
how about
in
instead
like
of
different
that,
directions.
like I'm okay with, hey, you're freaking a 4-man merc. You really can't change geopolitics of, that. I'm fine, but maybe you get access to tools that, you can utilize during your stuff. And I mean,
the problem is your actions don't matter, like, Phil.
yeah, because
like,
it's not like you're trying to set up a retirement and you just like retire, like, oh, I'm old age. It's
And
time
when
to
your
kick back,
actions
relax.
don't matter, then
Yeah,
all you're
I agree.
doing
I
is
agree.
like doing Pokemech.
Yeah, I agree.
Running around.
I don't have an answer directly, other than I guess what I'm trying to say is, I've said this before: as wide as an open ocean, as deep as a puddle. I want depth and substance. That's been my biggest critique of Mech 5 mercs from the beginning. It's depth and substance. I don't know how many freaking times I got to say it. I'm 100% with you. I mean, look at the academies. Great idea. Horrible implementation. And by the way, I should have said horrible. Words matter. All right, Phil, back up. Very lackadaisical. Let me choose words again better. Academies, good idea, bad initial implementation. That's what I would say. No one wants RNG is fine, but I've said this before. If you're on the SWAT team and I send you to go to sniper school, you're going to become a sniper. If you come back as a
long range small laser affinity, yes.
It's so backwards. And again, I apologize if the dev is listening to this, man. Just make adjustments to where it makes sense. Where, like, one, you need to be able to search in a glossary what academies. I shouldn't have to go to a certain planet. I should be able to pull it up on my, I don't know, space internet, and see. And then it's okay to have RNG to where, like, hey, you can become an energy specialist or a large laser or
missile specialist, and you have like heavy,
contain
light,
it to like 3 or 4
like,
things. Yeah. Like, hey, I'm going to send you to the first rookie school. Which class
and
of
you
mech
have
are
like
you
enough
be?
planets to have like
You
almost
have
all of
so
those
much.
separate in a way.
Have
so
a little bit of RNG, but it's constrained and it's controlled. Right now, you're wanting me to spend millions till you get a fucking flamer affinity, and like it just, and then I can't use you anymore, so I gotta let you go. The whole point, and I know some people, detractors, would say, well, I like the RNG. No, it's not. It doesn't even make sense. And stop trying to force the circle and a square peg sort of thing. It doesn't. It's okay that, the system needs adjustment. Well, here's the thing. We have not seen adjustment. We've had no adjustments since the dang game, the Shadow Krinsky came out. And by the way, good initiative. Phil and Magic are so used to being the alpha commenter. Well, that's true. We both, that's fair. I want to bring this point up. Someone just said, what can we do to help PGI survive and give us more MechWarrior games? I bought all the DLCs. I want to poke a hole in this, Chainfire, because there's nothing in your control. And I don't like Magic. I don't know if you've seen this, where I think there's too much white knighting going on. Like when I see someone say, "Oh my god, this is so amazing,"
positivity. They are so afraid that their game is gonna get hurt. Like if they say anything remotely critical of it,
buy this because if we don't, it'll go away.
They actively hurt the game. Yeah, I know.
It's so.
I know how it
bad,
sounds.
so bad.
Like the opposite of that is also like bad. There is definitely toxic negativity, but like toxic positivity can actually hurt the games more than just someone being, "This game is shit. I wish they all, whatever." I wish they closed the studio down or whatever. That's like completely opposite.
Yeah, that's
side.
horrible.
But shutting people like criticism, like legitimate criticism, because you're afraid that the game is going to suffer as a result of that criticism, that people are going to see the criticisms and then they're going to be, oh my god, this is not worth anything.
Yeah,
But
and then you
no,
ostracize the people that push back on that and are saying, no, what I'm saying is I just want something better. And it's like, the reason I'm saying this, Shane Fire, is a good question. I just needed to address that because I see this all the time. I see this in Twitter. I see this in Reddit. And if you detract from anything, you're labeled like this like negative suck answer, and it's
as
like no.
As long as your criticism is constructive,
yeah,
like that's all fine, and the developers need to be able to like kind of shift through that and see what's constructive. Maybe they disagree, maybe they have like a completely different design direction that they're pursuing, like that's fine. But you know, I see so many times that like they like not in the case of PGI, but sometimes like the developers like would actually shit on like some of that like constructive criticism they're getting back. And I can understand, they can say like, we're not like ready to do that, we're moving the game in a completely different like design direction, that's not what we have in mind. I can understand that. But like the problem is when they actively like kind of shit on the idea, and their design choice is objectively like even worse than like what was suggested.
And I think that's what hurt the game early on. We were talking about squirrels earlier with early MWO development, and the problem was the squirrels weren't really there to be helpful from a design perspective. It was just live Q&A, like having like, hey, we need to hop on and populate a 24-man, you know, like 12v12. I need bodies to come test whatever. That's what Paul, you know, needed. And but you had some really good players at the time that were very outspoken, and they felt it was their, you know, they just spoke out, and you know, they sort of got slowly kicked out of the squirrels. And so you basically got, and it wasn't intended for that, but also that sort of shows like, hey, someone's trying to tell you that there's something wrong with your game, and maybe you have an open ear. But on the other side is that's not what the intent was early on. And you know, if you're just trying to test a feature of like whatever, do you get stuck on this part of the map, you know, in this grid, or hey, test this weapon system to see if you find any bugs. So I guess my point being is early on in development, I don't think there was a proper feedback loop structure magic between like legit criticism / what we would say toxicity in the community. Because back then too, early MWO, man, some of you guys are shitheads. Yeah, I'll say it. Some of you guys are straight up douchebags, but also most of you guys were right about things. And it sucks being on the other end of that too, by the way. And when you can't really address it or say anything, for instance, like, you know, when Russ was like, hey, we're not using MechWarrior Online funds to fund MechWarrior 5 mercs. It's like, yeah, you are. That's how a fucking company works. What are you talking about? Like 100%. But also people don't realize
that's just like PR, so it doesn't sound too bad. Oh, you know,
but no, but people
like
don't realize
developing this other game.
Yeah, but that's
like,
how companies
just
work.
Stay there and have like minimal development.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying is that's how game the companies work. But people, you know, or you know, again, all the
I do not fault PGI too much for that. Like I can understand their decision, like wanting to move on to a new title, and like ultimately I do think like it's a good decision regardless of how much like profit MechWarrior Online was bringing in, and like at any point in time. The problem that they had was with their design decisions, like in the upcoming titles.
Yeah, well, and even MWO. I mean, I think faction play. Yeah, I think faction you're correct. Faction play just set everything up for failure.
Yeah, like after faction play flop, like the game was pretty much over. That's it.
Silent
was not going to change anything, even though it was even bigger flop than the faction play.
Yeah, Silent, I have to push back on that. I think what's tough is if you're the CEO, you have people underneath you that you're trusting to make decisions, and like, I think in this case. By the way, yeah, actually, I mean, this is a good time.
That depends, Phil, on how much CEO, like how much input he has on core design decisions. Because you can be like Todd, you know, like Todd Howard, and almost micromanage like every single little thing that
I agree.
Like, some developer might have. So it kind of depends.
The reason I want to push back on that is for this reason. You guys, some of you guys were there. Magic, you were around this. Faction plays announced at MechCon by Brian Ekman. that was the first time I knew about it. I think, unfortunately, Paul did not design. And so all of you guys want to shit all over Paul for this or that. He had no involvement with faction play. He was told, hey, go make this work, bro. It was Brian Ekman's. I mean, dude, you guys remember, he promised basically EVE Online in BattleTech, which sounds amazing. And he also did the same sort of spin for Transverse as well, right? So, granted, guess who disappeared shortly after all that, right? Because what I think it did is it put PGI in a quagmire of now we have to deliver this.
PGI was just not the studio that had the experience to like deliver such.
They didn't have the people, which is studio. Yes,
the
yeah, they didn't have the yeah. And it sucks. You know what? There was a designer that I when I started doing the quirks. This was around, I forgot what the time frame was. There was a designer that actually was sort of taking me under his wing and sort of helping out, and he was leaving to go to a different, bigger studio. And so like I got to like meet him like once. But my point being is, here you have Paul that just got derailed. Now he's got to design the system that was just promised, and it just set up, instead of saying, hey, we have a sinking ship, I don't think this is going to work. It's like, no, we got to make this work. And then you have, fast forward Solaris, after the millions of dollars are wasted on faction play. And I say wasted, not saying if you enjoyed it, you're wrong. What I'm more saying is it was objectively a failure because people just didn't play it or didn't like it. It had huge problems. Yeah, we can all agree.
That's pretty much it.
Same thing with Solaris. Like, Solaris dropped, and by the way, I worked for PGI at the time, right? I'm like the main community manager.
Solaris was effectively active for like a week and a half.
It was DOA. It was DOA. Like as soon as it dropped, I played it for a week and never wanted to touch it again. Because it was, and so like those decisions have large ramifications. And remember, the reason I bring this up is the financials. Russ said it was like developing another game. So it's like, how many millions of dollars were wasted on that? And then that's where I don't know, like, I don't know the, again, the extended part, this is where I'm like confused here. I know Beef was chimed in. He said, it's over. It was a good run, lads, by the way. There's a lot of Beef.
I'm not sure it's over, like in the way people think.
Well, why would you lay off this guy if you got extended, and if there's going to be like
EG7 didn't know what they were doing?
Do you think they made him fire?
I almost feel like I could be completely wrong about this.
No, there's no way.
See them like looking at the spreadsheet,
no,
and, like salaries, and they're like, okay, we have like this many of these.
Or did he leave?
Type
yes.
Of artists.
Did he leave?
No, or
many of these, and we're just gonna let off. Like we're just gonna
that
cross
they wanted to keep him on, but they needed to cut costs, so they were like, "Yo, are you willing to take a cut?" And he's just no, and then that's it. That could have been the scenario. They had to cut the fat. They might want to keep people on. We don't
Someone
know.
asked him what he's going to do, and he basically said, wherever the mechs take me. So, whatever. I mean, technically, they could have let him go, and he's going to do contract work for him, just like some of the other guys in the US, But why this confuses me is like, you have to wait until announcements. I don't think he's talking about Clans DLC here. So I think it's like one of those, it's like for all my military guys, hurry up and wait, stand by, like, is that what this means? I don't fucking know, man, so
I think product announcements are like DLCs as well. It can be something 100%. New, but like I think DLCs are counted in that quote unquote product word description.
Well, he also said,
I wouldn't read in too much.
Well, he said recently extended. The only reason you need an extension is if you're doing a new product, and I don't think that has to do with DLC from my understanding. Maybe I just need to be corrected.
Possible.
Yeah.
Possible.
Yeah, I don't
hard deadline on their contract from before.
I don't think EG7 they would probably go to Russ and say, hey, you need to cut, by whatever, 10%, 20, 30%, as far as like spending. Like that's what
you think they wouldn't be like doing the selection?
No,
of any kind?
no, 100% no. I guarantee they I shouldn't say guarantee. It would be very unlikely. They probably just said, hey, you need to lower your cost, and so remain calm, all is well. If they renew the license, that implies a new game. It would, other than unless I am totally incorrect in that it requires and I can send him a message being like, can you clarify? Well, I'll say it right here, quote, to clarify.
Well, I mean, if it's an extension or like quote unquote
extension happened, which is good news. Is this needed for DLCs or potential future MechWarrior order titles?
You said it right there. You gotta wait until the announcement, sir.
I know, but it's like the question is, do you have to?
I have a feeling you're not gonna get an answer on that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's worth a try. I'm just doing it. All right.
Yeah, I think it's worth a try. You just send it and like see what happens. If there's no response, then that's okay.
As we thought, development.
Just ask if the concept artist has been replaced by AI while you're at it.
Could continue indefinitely. Missing a lot. I'm spelling correctly on MechWarrior 5, MechWarrior.
I think the biggest loss of the concept artist is any future games going forward. If they do have plans for a future game, means they're going to be using the same assets they have now.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I just don't see a world where you get rid of like your main concept art guy that has made so much stuff for you if you're going to come out with a whole bunch of new stuff.
Unless he wanted to peace on out, or he's going to go to a contractor route.
He's wanted to follow the mechs though, right? So he's still interested in making concept art for mechs.
That's what I'm saying is he could be says still working on that, but probably I'll be wherever the mechs to do. Does he do contract work now? There's also other artists. I like, look, I love Flying and his work, but he can be, that art style can be copied very easy. Now that he's set the precedence, so I don't know.
I mean, there are other, of course, there are 3D artists like left working for the company. They still have like, even though they did let go of a lot of people, they still have like 3D artists left in. So like, it's not impossible for PGI to continue like developing like new chassis from now on and bringing in like new mechs. That's not the thing. It's just
Jimmy from Catalyst Game Labs.
It's just like weird that Alex got let go.
Well, he wasn't the only one, right? That other 3D artist, right?
Yeah.
What is this meta that you just linked?
It's another one from 2 days ago, apparently. Economic restructuring apparently was the reason he was given for being let go.
Oh my god, why is this? Sorry, my wife's account's just getting doxxed here. That's great. Hold on 1 second. Thanks, Meta. I said no, and it's still like logged in. No, log out here. Remember to sign out. Sign out.
Do it on the second screen. Take a screenshot and then
post it. Man. I'm trying to just get back to it. All right, our name's already out there.
Let's just cut out that part and paste it in Paint. It's good enough.
It's fine. I was impacted by economic structuring at Piranha Games today. Really good at having grown up playing the games to make. That said, it was an absolute pleasure working at a company full of fun, talented people. If anyone was looking for visual effects artists for video games or an FX artist for film and TV. Okay.
I mean, I don't think that says much that we don't know already.
Well, other than that, I don't think he's coming on for contract work. Or at least from that, it doesn't look like there's any plans for him to.
Someone could 100% pick him up.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I mean...
But usually they would put an olive branch out there, you know? Not just be like, hey, bye. Good luck.
I don't know. We have more questions. And again, I did the reply, so I don't know if we'll see a response to that. Sometimes Twitter is confusing, so just trying to get a.
I never really liked the layout of Twitter.
It's
and
so
how
fucking
replies
confusing
are.
because like it won't
It's
show.
so weird.
Yeah, it's I don't know. The only reason I have it is for NGNG. I don't. Yep. Perhaps they will join the Steel Bounty team by Micropros. Oh yeah, that actually I follow the guy that's developing that. I doubt it. So. Well, remember too, Detox, the last layoffs, I mean, Paul was let go, and Paul was a OG shareholder. Now, granted, since the company got bought out, he got paid off. And I'm not, he may have been wanting to bounce out anyways, so.
Yeah, 38 employees apparently was what the last layoff ultimately was.
I kind of disagree, Crusader. Like, they already have like high enough fidelity, like in the current games. Like I don't think fidelity is the problem. I think like some of the core systems like AI is like was always a problem. Like with both like MechWarrior 5 games, like each time they say they improved it, and I do believe that they fiddled with the code and improved like various aspects, but like it's not good enough. It's really just not good enough.
Yeah.
Like it was not good enough in MechWarrior 5 Mercs. It's not good enough like in MechWarrior 5 Clans.
Yeah, they're difficult, and some people don't really understand. It's like, that's why
you have to break it up into like individual aspects for them to like comprehend. Like I don't know. You just have to.
Yeah. Well, also too is like that's why the difficulty ramping is literally
the difficulty
a
is just
sponge.
an accuracy slider.
Accuracy
the
and bullet
is
sponge.
like accuracy slider and bullet sponge.
Dude, it's so frustrating.
I wish. I mean, they could do something along the lines. Okay, you can't like code in like a more advanced version of AI. Okay, understand, but why not have like certain mechs that have like certain like weaker weapon system, like regardless of the class, appear, and then if your difficulty is higher, you could have like mechs that have like better loadouts appear. But no, they're sticking 1-to-1 with the lore and the loadouts that were there like at that time. So you can't even have that. So like all the difficulty is like no one should ever bother with like either higher or like lower difficulty in the game. They should just play on normal difficulty, and that's it. Like, and I've beaten both of the games like at highest difficulty. So
yeah, I didn't even enjoy the clans one when I did it on Trueborn, because it was like, oh, I see what's happening here. It's like you're just artificially basically creating bullet sponges and basically making every pilot.
I mean, that's one easy way to do it. The other is to spam units, but like I feel like PGI needs to be much more creative when it comes to like both the quote unquote tactics aspect and like the general like difficulty aspects. It can't just be a freaking accuracy slider.
Yeah,
me jumping like midair and my cockpit like twisting in air, and like my cockpit getting like lasered down by mechs with like perfect accuracy is like the most annoying thing that I've encountered like in both games. Honestly, it happened to me in Clans, it happened to me in Mercs, and it completely like kind of denies the twisting damage aspect of the game. Like you can't just twist damage. Like if they roll the dice, they will hit you. Like even if your cockpit happens to be hurt.
Yep.
Be more creative. You mean with less people? We've seen like smaller studios create like much better.
You just have to have the right
games,
person.
So that's not the thing.
You have to have the right people.
Like you can have people that make good core design decisions, like with a small studio, and you can have people make very bad core design decisions like with a big studio. So like yes, the studio size does impact as to what you're able to develop, but then again, the choices that you make can be wrong regardless of your size.
Immediately aimbotted, pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty much that's exactly what it is. So
and I've seen games like implement like more human like type of like aiming for AI, where like if you're moving with your mech and you suddenly stop, like they would kind of do the same thing like a human would. They would overshoot you, they would shoot like in front of you. or like if you were moving like in the same direction, they would take like some time to line up their aim on you, like let's say 3 or 4 seconds, and then they would hit you. But if you change directions, they would all of a sudden miss that shot. But
Well,
instead, we have just percentages, and they're like rolling dice nonstop. And depending on the dice, depending on like the difficulty or whatever, like that's gonna be it. So like your armor is basically a stat, and like depending on how high enough of a stat that is, you will be able to complete it or you will not be able to complete it. It's beyond annoying. It's beyond frustrating, and one of probably my biggest like problems with MechWarrior 5s, like in general, but maybe most people don't notice, maybe they don't pay attention to it. And honestly, like with ballistics, like it's not as bad as it is like with the lasers. With lasers, like it's instantly noticeable how AI like behaves.
Yeah, that's where like if you look at their skill system, that's why like almost all of them have evasion. Like you have to like, you know, and it's like
what is the skill that you go for first?
Evasion,
like evasion.
Yeah, and that sort of goes to the like the other issue is there's no dynamic events or things that you can do. I've said this time and time again, like fucking have smoke chaff or something where you can dynamically change what's happening either for or against you, or other events too, like whether it's artillery, whether it's this or that. Hold on, I just got a reply.
Another comment. BattleTech is a niche IP. It has nothing to do with the IP. Please, people.
He's triggering you.
It's
don't
the
do
game.
it. Don't fall into the trap.
Freaking game.
He said the N-word. Don't just calm down. Magic. It's gonna be okay. Don't do that, chat. Why would you do that?
I'm so annoyed. Like it's such a freaking scapegoat.
We got an announcement here. It says to clarify, extension happened. Good news is this needed for DLCs or blah blah blah. Way too much contract nuance to answer in a tweet. Suffice to say that in 15 plus years, Microsoft and the license has never been a barrier. They have always supported us and allowed us to follow MechWarrior vision as stewards of the IP. They have been an amazing partner and rights holder. Again, I think
he says the license is not the problem. Well,
I think it's capital. I think it's money. I think EG7 does not have the money to sub. And one also, I don't know if that's how that company like works. I don't know if they're like, hey, we will give you X to help fund a project. I just don't know. No, it's actually an answer, Tom. I think he basically is saying is there's more to get into it. But he's basically saying is the license isn't the issue with. That's basically what he's saying. But he's also saying contract nuance to. I think what he's saying is contract nuance to the development of these products. He's like, there's more to it that I just can't go over on a tweet. Yeah,
it's
but
still weird though. It doesn't make any sense. Like
he
even said so far that MechWarrior 6, they couldn't call it MechWarrior 6 because of the license. And even went on to so far is like that's just confusing.
Yeah, that's a little bit contradictory. I agree. I noticed that as well. That's a really good
it's just confusing. Like it literally, you're stepping on your own foot by calling a new game the same thing as an old game.
He justified it back then because he said that MechWarrior 4 and like some of the earlier titles like did something similar. They had like a separate game, but they were just like titled like differently.
It was a fever dream, but I thought he mentioned something at some point and with Phil that like it was the license reason why we couldn't call it MechWarrior 6.
I also think like it was stated at one point.
I think that was Darren.
I think I remember the same.
I think that was Darren.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I have not spoke to Russ like in like on comms since that podcast, and then because I had a falling out, so their PGI is suffering from not necessarily because they did make money last year. They're suffering because the investments EG7 has is putting pressure on all the studios under their umbrella. That's what's happening now. If PGI was making the bread and butter, none of this would be happening. Like same thing with like if the other studio, the one that does Planetside EverQuest, the Daybreak was blown it out of the water. You're not pulling funds from that. If anything, you're shuttling funds to it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's what a publisher would do. Yes.
But they didn't just close PGI. Could that happen? Sure, but they're still in the positive here. right? So last year they still
I think
positive.
they would have to get to like Toadman level of like their future title basically getting like 20 players and them spending like all the resources on that future title and then like just getting written off. Or like a title like with Antimatter and like being developed for so long that they like basically ran out of money like mid development, and then EG7 gone and taken a look at it and concluded that like the prospects of this like even being like a rush release and like earning the money back is like very low. So they were just like disbanding the complete like studio. That happens. That actually happened like under EG7.
You send him a case of beers or something. That's what's on the podcast.
What? Oh man, again, we've now no more info. Like I said, I don't think it's a non-answer. I think it actually explains sort of the things, which is okay. It's not the license. Outside of that, unless anybody else, am I missing something? If it's not the license, they just extended. It's not the licensee. It's not Microsoft. Microsoft isn't the barrier here. I think the barrier here, you just let go of more employees. We have a small list, but we don't have all the list. You just let go of your lead artist. It has to be just capital. It has to be money. It's just money has to be tight. Yeah, cash flow is king. Yeah, I mean,
Oh yeah, I did for a moment. I'm sorry, didn't hear anything from the previous 10 seconds.
Yeah,
I was just basically saying. Did I?
It cut out completely on our end.
Oh, I was saying is cash flow is I think the only problem here. I don't think it's
yeah.
I don't think yeah.
That's been going on.
And because like EG7 doesn't have the funds for anything right now, and they're just cutting everything and optimizing like everything, they can't provide those additional funds to PGI.
Well, and we also know EG7, based on that info, is restructuring to where they're basically saying that we're trimming the fat, that decisions were made that they're going to do. I would assume what they're going to do is try to restructure so then you see an upswing, because you don't want to take over, have a hostile takeover basically, and of the board, if you will. And it's two individuals, from my understanding. It's two guys basically took majority share ownership, and they're wanting to swing that towards positive growth, right? So
a friendly takeover, if you will.
Yeah. Now they could be telling the studios, make do with what you got. We're in a rough spot, cutting here, because what they're wanting to do is I bet you it's probably similar to what happened last time, which is, hey, we need you to cut so you stay in. Is it the red or the black? That's good.
Black is good. Red
black is good. Yeah, they want the studio to stay in the black. And so, and then, okay, so they just let these guys go. They're doing a DLC next month. That's going to be even better profit for them, right? So we know they've been working on the next DLC for Clans. It hasn't been announced yet, but they've stated it. Chris Lowry, I think, even stated it on Twitter here previously. So, yeah.
Yeah, that has been public knowledge. Yes.
Yeah. We don't know title. We don't know theme. We don't know anything. But I mean, based on Chaos Rain, I wasn't expect. I was wondering if they were going to do the like Twycross with like the Jade Falcons or something, but they're doing more of like Civil War sort of craziness, and which I think is more open ended. Also characters are getting
mean, did you see the post from Chris? He basically said, I honestly don't know how long we will be able to keep the ship sailing. It's been a small miracle that Mercs has received 5 years of post-launch support as it is. Very few other single point of purchase games get that around amount of post-launch support in our industry.
I'm just pulling up his stuff right here. Ooh, it's been a brutal week, and while I'm not as free to say things as others, to those who have reached out, yes, I'm still employed, and yes, I'm still working on MechWarrior. Layoffs are never fun. I had to say goodbye to too many longtime friends and colleagues. Many of them that were there, I started when PGI. I've made inquiries to some. Okay, blah, blah, blah. As for us still around, there have been doom and gloom about us at MechWarrior for many years. Last year's round of layoffs hit us harder. It's a small miracle that Mercs has received 5 years of post-launch support. Oh, well, that's because us nerds keep buying it. That's why. Yeah, he doesn't really say anything here other than that. There's really nothing.
Like just the comment, I honestly don't know how long we will be able to keep the ship sailing.
Well, I mean, it's
that's kind of worrying, but
well,
like,
it's
that's fine, I guess.
The DLCs are usually diminished in return. You know, you sell 500,000 the first, then you sell 400,000 the second, and then 350 the third, or whatever. So, yeah. Well,
I'm just like thinking, what would it take to turn things around at this point? Like,
money,
right? But where is that coming from? Like,
money. Oh, sorry.
I've always been under the impression, like, oh man, if you just had, like a really baller MechWarrior movie come out, then that'll really get some interest back. But that's not even possible. Like, the fractured IPs means that it's not really a thing that can easily be accomplished.
I know people will like disagree with the statement of mine, but I do think that they have a lot of groundwork done already. They have the bones, they have the system for piloting mechs, they have the mech designs. They just need to develop like the core design behind like a very interesting core gameplay loop that's gonna keep players like in and interested. Like, and that needs to be like a new title as well.
Well, I think we said it earlier. Take MechWarrior 5 Mercs. Now call it MechWarrior 6 Mercs. Update, improve the gameplay loop. So it's not just Pokemech. Give depth and substance to missions. And obviously with UE5, they may have new tools for generative content. Add on to it a co-op, better, more in-depth co-op system. Or maybe you can do, you know what I'm saying? Where like it's not just your buddy joins your thing. And an online thing where you let the, I don't know why no one else says this. Do a freaking Tori, is this the correct term when I'm talking about in chat of an API system where people can host their own servers and stuff like that? But do an online where you let there's a server list or whatever. Like, you guys remember the old Battlefield days? Games still do it.
That's not just old Battlefield games. Games still do it. Yeah. Even Battlefield does it. Yeah. Even Battlefield does it.
You, and then what does that do? That offloads a lot of the work to the community, and then you let the community you already have the editor. Maybe you improve the editor a little bit here or there to allow for multiplayer stuff to happen. But I mean, I think if you take Mech 5 Mercs and you give it depth and substance, I think you're getting this. You don't want it too hardcore where everybody's ostracized who doesn't know what they, BattleTech MechWarrior. But I feel like, missions and where it feels unique and dynamic and giving long-term goals or whatever. Or, I mean, you can go down the list. I mean, I'm sure there's designers there like Tori and stuff.
There's like multiple design decisions that are different from one another that they can take. And
what stops you from playing Mech 5 Mercs all the time? Magic, what stops you from playing it?
Mostly bad AI.
Okay.
Very I can even get away with like some of the repetitive missions, but if the AI was better in them, and if the AI was utilizing like kind of like more sensible tactics versus like what they usually do is just like rush towards you, like press W and then like you kill him, and that's pretty much it.
The hatchman runs at you going at 64 kph.
AI is one thing, and the other big thing, and I know people disagree with me, and I know it's like a different thing for a Mercs game. I want my actions to have impact on the world itself. If I wage war for Steiner for like 2 months, I want to see Steiner doing something.
Oh, you beautiful child, summer child.
I want to have consequences, like in other parts of like maybe I take over a planet. I take over a planet that produces like a particular type of a mech. Now I have access to that mech, and like my ability to purchase that mech is like much better than it used to be before, when I could like barely get my hands on it or whatnot. And if I lose that planet, I lose access to that. And I can also like fortify the planet. I can also do other things. I can expand, like, I don't know, it doesn't have to be too much in depth, but like the world needs to have consequences. I don't know how PGI can pull that off. I have some ideas how I would do it, like if I was designing it, but the game couldn't, like the map could not respond like one-to-one to lore.
We were
you
just
would have
talking
to pick a starting year and then go after that.
Magic.
Like,
What if
players develop their own thing?
What if there was a sub system of almost like because some of the stuff you're talking about, I don't think it has to be done in 3D world per se, but like what if it had there was
that's not-
4x elements, 4x elements, or like stuff like you could send out an
4X elements.
espionage,
You
like
don't
you know,
need
like
need
yeah,
like a shit ton of 3D developers to develop that.
have like a
might have
spy network that you can send them to, you know, I don't know. You think of like Star Wars, you send, you know, Luke to be to Coruscant or whatever to, you know, blah, blah, blah. But you could do 4X strategies, stuff like that to where it adds
the
some
important
depth.
thing, and to sum it up without going like into intricacies of how you do like a 4X stuff, is that you need to make players like actions in the world matter in a more substantial way. Because otherwise, like, nothing really matters.
I don't know,
like,
man.
you're
Sometimes
just not doing anything.
I don't know if that's even realistic because not saying like more of like, dude, you're a merc. You're a cog within a cog into a war
that's
machine.
why I don't want it to be a merc game.
You
I
know?
want it to be more of a factions game, and then you align with the faction, and then you wage war for that faction.
But you have
and then you influence the politics of the world and stuff like that.
Tori said there would be a big update coming for AI.
He says it won't do everything everybody wants, of course, but lots of effort in improving it.
I have a question for Tori. Have you guys looked into like actually how many people can run on a single multiplayer session? Like
like clans?
Like if we're talking about for clans, like if we're talking about a future where they expand on it to like try to make it MW-esque, you know, be it Titanfall or whatever they end up doing with it. Like how many people would there even be in that? Would it be 4v4? Was that like how many people could you get in a multiplayer session?
Yeah, K Brown, that makes sense. Yeah, that's what Magic's saying is don't play him. He doesn't want to play a merc. He wants to be a part of a unit or a merc that aligns with a faction that then gets the bonuses. But yeah, I to me it's like one of those things where even outside of that, just depth and so I think a lot of people like and for me, I don't want all give, and this is something that I feel like BTA sort of struggles with. BattleTech Advanced, for those who don't know, it's mod, but like you'll have like upgrades for your dropship, but there's no negatives. The only negative is cash flow, and that becomes pointless. So it's not like it's like a give or take, like, oh, hey, we've got 4 mech bays on the Leopard, and we have a 5th that we can convert, but if we do that, then we lose out on like artillery support because we can't mount a cannon or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, I like designs where it's not all give necessarily, but there's sometimes there's take. You know, same thing with like upgrades to weapons and stuff where it's like, hey, just level 0s just become just pointless, you know, and stuff like that, where then you had the mods in Mech 5 make it, this was really cool, where you could take 2 like level 0 small lasers and make a level 1 small laser. So even though I don't think that's the perfect solution, but it's just one of those things where like, you know, depth and substance to like, some people really want to do the micromanagement of like your merc unit or unit, like but you don't want to be filling out fucking spreadsheets like HR filing someone's pay work and like retirement info. But like, hey, one event that I really like in BattleTech, it's like, hey, I got approached by the Wolf Dragoons. Do you think I should take it? You know, like those dynamic events, I actually think that's actually really cool because like, it's like, yes, or maybe you just have a pilot that's like, hey, I signed a 3-year contract with you. I want to pay upgrade, or I'm bouncing, or like, hey, I need this benefit, you know. And, there's no reason why there couldn't be contract lengths on your MechWarrior. Like, because right now, dude, fucking Mason's going to be how old? 80, 90, like, you know, rocking.
He's pushing it.
Dude, and you know, Rihanna hasn't aged one fucking bit, you know, so I don't know what's going on there.
Anti-aging,
you know,
medicine.
Fucking clanner robots, androids, they're actually not people. So, but that's the thing is I always ask people, why don't you play this 24/7, or why do you play it 24/7? But for me, I can see where the AI also too is just there's just no depth to it. You know, one beachhead mission.
Tori said that they will improve AI, and I do believe that behind the curtains they're kind of working on it, but it's usually not enough. I was kind of told the same thing from MechWarrior 5 clans, and then I went in and it was basically the same. It was basically the same as Mech 5 mercs. I did not notice like a major difference between clans and mercs in terms of like
Well,
AI behavior.
Another issue,
I think like in mercs, in order to scale up the difficulty, like they were more inclined to spam more mechs at you. Where like in clans, it was more along the lines of like sponginess. I think like clans was a more spongy game than mercs in
well, did they even
those
fix
terms.
the elemental issue in clans? When you have it attacking, your friendlies won't do anything with that mech, and now they're introducing power armor to mercs. I'm like, are they going to have the same issue? Where so I don't know. I mean, AI also too is, and this is Tori. How much improvement can you do when the AI is in a box? Like, they can't flank left or right because the map is so narrow, or there's no escape. How about like those are other things that like really, it's like, why is a locust running dead straight at you in a straight line with a medium laser and 2 machine guns? No, they'd be like, oh, fuck this, dude. You have a Steiner Scout Lance.
They're afraid, and I understand like where they're coming from. They're afraid that like if they make him too kitey or something, then player is gonna have to be chasing like, you know, small like mechs running all across the map, and like it's gonna be frustrating for them. So
I guess what
like,
I'm saying
they
is
do
there's no dynamic.
just send them towards you. I know.
Yeah,
I think there is a middle somewhere to be
you.
struck there, but like that was basically like an argument of Rust, like in one, oh, we can always like make them more accurate. Like I don't care about an accuracy slider. I don't care about like mechs like running away from you like nonstop. Like that's not how you do it. But I feel like it's just a cop out answer, as it usually is.
Well, why do you need a light mech in general? I mean, it's to get to point A to point B quicker. There's no dynamic differences between sensor systems or the internals of mechs. So like I can do the exact same thing in the Locust that I can do in an Atlas. So there's nothing unique there. Whereas if you look at like an M1A1, the base that came out first, and now with the, M1A1 2 Sept or blah 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 blah, it's got full. I mean, that's the thing is like you have missions. Well, why do you need a faster mech? Well, because I need to go hit a target GTFO. And well, you don't have any of that because you can't issue commands in mercs. There's no command thing of like, hey, this is one of my critiques of Beachhead. Was like, I can't tell my lance mates without a visual line of sight to go attack those artillery pieces that are hammering us. And by the way, it's only triggering me because I'm the only player, which is super annoying. Whereas in clans, you can actually do that.
One massive improvement in clans. This was one of the biggest improvements, like in terms of like gameplay improvements to the game. Like having the ability to command troops and like troops, lol. I mean, command like units on the map and like just send them like where you need them to go, and you don't have to like have direct visual line of sight on that place to make them do so.
I would still like it if you could set a path for them to take rather than just be like go here and then they figure it out.
I think it's tough because you want a little bit of do as I say, because if they just wandered off and like said, I'm going to take this path or whatever, blah, 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 you'd be like, what the fuck are you doing, man? I told you to go over there and attack the thing. And it's like, yeah, but you're also putting me in a long range mech. So I'm going to go kite these, and you're like, so I know that's not an easy. My main thing is like, again, dynamic stuff like, again, patrols. There's a difference between a military target and a civilian target. I think the one thing with procedural generation is I'm sure it's probably upgraded in Unreal 5. And they also have other things too where they could just improve that quite a bit without having to do this. Like every map is either a version of a square or a rectangle, and you can see tiles reused. They call them garrisons, by the way. It's a weird thing. Instead of just calling them like a tile, they call them garrisons. Garrisons have the military term, which is weird.
I'm fine with like procedurally generated missions. Like for the most part, I'm fine with like procedurally generated maps.
See, there
if they're like sufficient, if there's like enough of different ones, like I'm completely fine with those like systems in place. I just want like if the AI was improved sufficiently, I think that would be like much less of a problem. Like even the repetitions, like in the game modes themselves.
Well, and that sort of goes back to I sort of imagine like you take a contract and it's a multi-mission or potential might spawn off missions, and you can imagine a 60 by 60 kilometer map. and you might have some travel or whatever. But I guess what I'm saying is, now imagine that planet only had X units, X amount of tanks, X amount of infantry, X amount of mechs, and maybe there might be here or there that something happens and it might dynamically change or whatever. But you know, like, oh, hey, we're doing this thing. We've been hired by the population to hit their outpost of ammunition, or that's what you start doing. And that's where I feel like it really bugs me in Mercs when it's just wave upon wave of dropship reinforcement. It's just all you're doing. I don't like that gameplay loop of difficulty, and instead of it being tactical, there's no
like with less units,
Yeah.
maybe like with less
Yeah.
units, but more lethal.
or hey, I
like,
just
you
took
know.
out that panther. That was the only panther on this fucking planet. It's now gone, you know, or oh, we just salvaged it. And that's why Tori says proc gen would be interesting in UE5 compared to what Mercs has for sure. There's a lot of stuff involved in the Mercs proc gen. Tiles are the terrain and all the markup related to what garrisons can spawn on them and what configs are valid, including it. So are you saying that, or would you infer that a proc gen system in Unreal 5 could be a lot better, a lot more dynamic? You know, because I wonder about level streaming too. For those who don't know, it's like if you see some of the demos of like Unreal 5 where you've got this sprawling map and you can pretty much go in anywhere. The thing about it is the game only renders what you visually can see. And even some of that is faked until you get to a certain point. It starts loading the next like segment. You could do that technically in Unreal 5, and I don't think you could do it in Unreal 4. Yeah, level. Okay. Well, if you were doing it from scratch in UE5, you could look into level streaming or world partition to open up some options. So you could technically literally have a garrison, a planet garrison, and you are 100 kilometers away from a enemy base, and they have to physically, there's travel time. So you could get a warning. Hey, Magic, we have inbound raider signatures. Looks like the reinforcements coming. You need to hurry up and get out of there. Okay, roger that. That, to me, that's the things that really bug me about Mercs is it's like, it just breaks the fourth wall of, oh, enemy reinforcements, bloop, enemy reinforcements, bloop. And it's like, you're not playing a mission, you're playing a game mode. I want to feel like I'm playing a mission. And
I think like most MechWarriors would like to lean in more into those like sim aspects of like even like than they would like into arcade like aspects of a game. Like that's just like the feeling that I got like over time, like much more. And I know PGI constantly keeps talking about, well, if you make it like too much sim like, then it's gonna
I don't think that's
like
sim.
push away
I think that's
a lot
more
of
of
people.
just...
I know exactly, but I'm just using the word to kind of illustrate it a bit better. So like, for example, like a lot of people had a problem with the FPS movement control system, but it was not necessarily the movement controls that were the problem, but like how acceleration and deceleration
or the
and
lack
like
thereof.
twisting and spinning and lack thereof was handled. Like, you know, that's once again like good idea, bad execution again. Like, and it's so annoying. But
we haven't. But that's my point too. On some of this is we haven't seen any iteration of. The only critique I have of that system is, please, for the love of God, just add some momentum inertia and boom, you're fine. Like, I actually think it's smart. I agree with you, Magic, because to me, the more and more you look at it, it's like, that's like a la Mech Assault sort of movement. I may not like it as a hardcore fan, but guess what? Someone else might. And if it brings them into play in MechWarrior BattleTech, and it's their own freaking instance of whatever playing single, I don't really give a shit of what they're doing. But we haven't seen any adjustments of academies, Tori, Mercs adjustments. But like, those are the little things we don't see iterations of. And also I think it's sometimes the limitation. I think Tori or whoever, I'm assuming Tori, whoever else is working on DLCs is confined to the system that was created. Whereas he's saying in chat, if you're starting from scratch in UE5, you've got so many more options to choose and start from, where you can say, okay, yeah, we won't paint ourselves into a corner here doing this, you know. But yeah, I don't know. His last response, man, still has me I don't.
About the license.
Yeah, and then he's
Yeah.
basically saying is there's too much here to answer, but it's not the license that's an issue. To me, it's like that's capital. So then where does that, he's like, he could just say literally, he literally could say, look at the gaming industry. It's in a pickle. He's not going to be able to say EG7's in a fucking horrible position and they can't support us. It's more of like, the game industry is tough and we'd have to find a publisher or not even a publisher, a funder. I don't know.
I mean, they could try to like kickstart it, I guess, if the lack of funds was unavailable, but it would once again have
how
to
do
be
you
a
feel about the
separate
PR
project.
about that? Do you think that would be good
in
PR?
terms of what?
Piranha
For Kickstarter?
Well, I just mean Piranha.
They can be public. If I was on their end, I would kind of be public about it. I don't think like EG7 would oppose it like as well.
What do you think the perception from the community is, though? That's what I'm saying. Do you think it could be successful nowadays?
For a Kickstarter, or like what do you mean? Like perception
for them,
of starting?
if they're going to try to do a founders program or whatever, but basically like, hey, this is the reality. We need capital. But yeah,
I think after like the experience that people have with founders program one, they would be very, very cautious about it, to say the least. Unfortunately, that's the stigma that follows them now, and there's no escaping it. But maybe if they were like completely honest with the situation, like open their cards and show them to people,
them being
saying like, this is what we can do, this is like the problem that we have, this is like what we need, and this is what we can develop like realistically. These are like realistic things that we can do with the developers that we have on our hand. I think people would understand and they would be open to it. Of course, you would never like have the full trust versus a studio who didn't let down like their player base with previous examples of a founders program, but like I think it's doable.
I think
it's doable, but they have to play it right.
I don't think the 500 gold mechs were PGI's idea, by the way. That was
IGP. That was IGP.
Meta, what were you saying?
They've never been forthcoming with their designs on games.
I know that's the problem. Like I've been talking this to Darren, I've been talking this to Matt on like several occasions. Like I'm asking them to be like more open about their design decisions before like the moment that they're being like delivered to everyone, and then like everyone gets to like criticize it or whatnot. Just you don't have to leak like, I don't know, like a lore element that's going to be released like in the upcoming game, but just talk about like the core design decisions, how the game is going to look like what's going to be the main thing, how the missions are going to be designed. Like be open about stuff like that. You don't have to leak like whatever lore aspect or like lore element or storyline you're going to have to like include in the
last
next
time
thing. But
we talked about this, what you're really inquiring about is having for lack of a better term, you have consultants that come in and basically say yes, no, or whatever. Because that's one of the critiques you made about clans and mercs was like, you take Mech 4. If you played Mech 4, I could tell you what issues you're going to run into if you're going down this road for this or that, and or even MechWarrior Online. And so what you're saying is to have internal consultants to be not the boogeyman, but just bring reality to is like, hey, what else? Like, or what do you
don't have QA to test like your already made decisions that you're developing. Like have people actually comment about. And I know this is difficult. Like
sometimes it's impossible. Rampancy.
It is. And I'll give like a simple example. Like you decide to go like in a certain direction, and someone else might have like a good idea, but it's not like it's not moving like in the direction that you want to move the game in. That doesn't mean that his idea is bad. It just means that you're like doing something else. But and it is like a very, very big but. Like this decision that you make needs to be criticized from, I wouldn't say like from the outside, but just kind of show it like somewhat to maybe not wider community, maybe that's like a consultancy group or whatever, but have it tested and like try to receive like the feedback you get from that testing like as honestly as you can, and don't just dismiss it like out of hand.
I think what's
If
tough.
something is like not working, or if something is like not clicking, it's better to scrap that like in very early stages than getting to the last stage, like pushing it out, the reception not being that good, then trying to change the system enough and then failing to change the like whatever like design you were trying
Well, I
to
mean, I
develop
think what's
like in
tough
the
is
first place.
Ramses would like to hear the thought process behind the design decisions. The issue is that takes time. To put in perspective, like if you were, that's why you need community managers. That's why almost like studios, depending on the size, need sort of like what me and Darren did, which is like, you know,
No, PR relations with the public, like, is one thing.
would,
I'm talking about like more open style of development.
No.
PGI,
I'm answering. No,
for
no.
the whole time,
I
know. Just to say this, and PGI has been very, very closed in terms of like what they're developing. Even people internally that were like a part of that group, you know, for MechWarrior Online that was doing the testing, like did not know about Solaris until like they were like, okay, we guys need you to balance like these classes. Same for the skill tree. Like you can't get to that point.
Yeah,
you can't get to that point. You have
agree.
to start like, you know, like almost not when the concept are necessarily being born, but like a bit after they're being born. They're like, okay, how is this gonna look? This is we have a rough idea. This is gonna look like this. What are you guys like thoughts about this? Like what are the problems that you envision might be with this? What are the good sides, and like how we can iterate versus like reaching the literally last stage of it and then make it work.
In an ideal world, I think you would have a team of designers that have a good grasp on what you're already talking about, Magic, and also the community feels confident enough to where this guy knows what he's doing, or these guys, gals, whoever, these people, your design team and gameplay team knows, and we have our trust there. I think what you're talking about is more of like, everything right now that you're saying is we're going to question everything because we feel like because of the past mistakes you're just going to repeat them, and we just don't want that to happen. And then you're going to turn around as like, oh well, you didn't really want this, and you're like, no, we did, but you weren't listening, so forth and so on. And I think what's tough for Rampancy is that that's the difficulty. I've said this before. How many times have you guys heard me saying you need people with an imagination and creativity in certain positions, especially with BattleTech, to be
like
able
Solaris was not a capital problem. Skill tree was not a capital problem.
Well, you've heard me talk about skill tree. I'm at MechCon.
Like, I'm just saying because people usually like fall back on like, oh, it's just the money. If you had like infinite money, you would have like infinite abilities to create whatever you want. But no,
people, leadership, and sort of planning. Because like, the skill tree in its not current form, but like how it looks right now, going from modules to this. It was so frustrating. I mean, me and Chris are standing there. It gets announced on the screen, and Paul says, hey, Phil, hey, Chris, you guys get to balance this now. Not, hey, come to us with your best decisions, go out in the community. Come, like, I'm all for, like, and that's just, it is what it is. That was really tough, is like, instead of saying, hey, we just want to hear your best ideas, and even if those ideas come from the community, I don't really give a fuck where they come from. I don't give a shit. It's like, hey, we're going to take this. So point in case is, next thing you know, you get a skill tree that goes out, and it's just one thing on top of the other. And this is during your time of the largest exiting of your product and game. You're just bleeding out on top of, you know, decision after decision. This is where it goes back to what Cylon was saying is, and we never really finished this, Magic, which is, he said it's all Rust. And I'm like, you know, what's difficult is if you're talking about Todd, where you're a micromanager, and there is a leadership thing where, hey, you think you have the right people. And also too, as a leader, you need to delegate and let you put them in charge. You hired them for a reason. If they're not doing what you shouldn't have hired them. And I think we had some of that in the past where, you know, again, Brian Ekman goes in there and promises the world the stage and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden Paul is getting screwed over basically, and he had his own versions for faction play, by the way. I got to see some of them. And I think they would have fit a lot better. Than what we got. And so next thing you know, and also the public perception, he's just getting reamed, by the way, of everybody blamed Paul, and it was like, dude, Paul wasn't the one who did it. It was Brian Ekman going up there.
It's always the public face that's gonna get blamed.
My point being is
how it
that's
is.
leadership management, and then you're saying, well, it's a human problem, because if that wasn't an issue, every fucking company would be killing it. Every game company's ideas would work. The reality of it is it's who's there, who's making shots, who's making the calls, and yes, the money stops, or the buck stops with you at the top, but that's where you have to make the decisions. I'll be right back as my dog needs out.
I'm still confused on like who is actually making any decisions in any of these MechWarrior games, because like when you talk to Darren, it's like, oh, I'm not responsible for that, and then when you talk to Russ, it's like, oh, I'm not responsible for that. So like, who's making all these decisions?
Well, Russ is responsible ultimately for his company, and that's what sucks as a leader is like, and I'm not saying anything bad about Russ. Like I said, I've had a good relationship with him. I disagree with him on stuff, but you don't go anywhere if you don't like.
But like, who is actually making the decisions? Because like, when there actually was still a dev team on MWO,
I think
like,
it was.
Darren was in here saying he doesn't make the calls on all that stuff.
Oh, back then, no. I'm saying
also,
no.
So it's like, who was doing it?
I'm saying early on, I think you had Paul was the lead designer, so anything design wise, gameplay, everything fell on his shoulders. He has designers underneath him. So, for instance, I would have fallen under Paul's guidance, but Paul was super busy with faction play when I started doing the quirks. So it's like one of those things where that's where some of that stems. Also, what happens if you have multiple people in leadership positions and you have egos? I've stated, like, do you guys remember the original clan artwork for the logos? And you had the lead artist at the time, or lead art manager, a leader, or whatever. I don't. And it was like it was a total detached thought, and he was like, "Well, I wanted to do my own thing, and reimagine." It's like, no, your fans don't want that. And imagine that goes back. Well, what did they end up doing? They didn't reimagine them because they were horrible, and everybody spoke up. Good. But also, it's like if you have your finger on the pulse, you wouldn't make some of those decisions. But also, you do want devs to take sometimes a little bit of a leap of faith and, again, iteration and sort of creativity or whatever. That's what's tough is you're playing on a knife's edge sometimes.
Sometimes fans can pull like in one direction, and you do want to do something. It's like it's a tricky thing to do. Sometimes fans can be wrong. And I know it's like difficult to accept this, but
oh yeah,
like you decide.
I'm wrong all the time. I'm wrong all the time.
You decide a certain like design direction as a developer, and then someone who has played something slightly different before, like, is gonna disagree with it. But like, you can't just like take that design from like the previous like game or whatever and slot it in if it doesn't fit like in the general scope of the game, or if it doesn't fit like in the holistic like design picture of the game. And that can be sometimes problematic for people to accept.
Well,
I understand.
It's when people get attached to their ideas. Your idea isn't you, and then like people get really attached. By the way, like, well, I posted on the forums, and blah blah blah, and someone's like, yeah, that doesn't really fit for this game. Well, but it's like, dude, it's just an idea. It's like, you're not your idea. It's like, we're not saying, or maybe it's just a really stupid idea. We're not saying you're stupid. It just doesn't fit with what you're, trying to achieve. And by the way, I'm the first one to admit that. I that's why I feel like dialogue and discussion is your best form and best foot forward. Is like, yeah, you need to be able to poke holes into it. That's why I always talk about like really good players are a great resource for devs to poke holes into design. Like, why is the railgun a problem? Why is this blah, blah, blah? You're not catering towards them. What you're doing is you're using their expertise to see if there's any issues in your design. That's all it is. It's game design. That's all it is. So, and also it's tough too. I'm sure, again, the studio it's like with anything, if any of you guys, I mean, shit, having kids, if you're an entrepreneur, maybe you work, like rewind 10 years and yeah, you'd have done this or that different, or oh, I would have built this house different, or oh, I would have done this different financially, or oh, I would have done this. It's like, yeah, hindsight's always 20/20, and sometimes we don't like give that same credence to like a developer or whatever, blah blah blah. So there's like, sometimes you have to do that, like, you know, that's what it is. But also, for you guys that weren't around, the development pace of MechWarrior Online was fucking bananas at the start. We had 2 patches a month. You had a EG7, not EG7. You had an IGP that was hovering and making fun. I mean, they were making buckets of money. I mean, and so it was hot and fresh. Like, dude, there was just, you know, and a lot of decisions were made, I think, in the sense of the free to play World of Tanks model was popping for MWO.
That's what the game was modeled for. Essentially,
the game was modeled to extract every bit of money from you, from a psychological. By the way, I don't know if that's what Paul was brought on the team for. He was really, like, he had done I think a research paper on it and presentation. I saw it about the psychological. You know, we say whales this, but it's the psychological needs to gotta collect them all. I gotta have this fear of missing out, blah, blah, blah. That's all part of the free to play model. All of it. Like any free to play, even now with like Battle Pass, is set up to be a psychological mindfuck to where you feel like you're going to miss out and you're never going to have that opportunity to get that again.
You can't miss out on the Battle Pass now because like it stays forever. So that's a nice thing that PGI did.
Well, nice is an interesting word to use.
I would say it's a nice thing because I for example, like with Battlefield 6 recently, I've only completed like half of the Battle Pass.
Sure. But is it a nice thing of them to do, or was it just a limitation of their system and their game wasn't designed around it? Ergo, it couldn't really be implemented.
I think it's more of a limitation, but it's still like good to see that it's not like time gated.
Just call it what it is, Magic.
They could time gate it. They could have time gated it.
I'm not gonna give them a bone on that one. I just think it was a necessity because of the system. I don't think.
You think because of the website, like
website,
like
and they didn't.
Itself,
If they could have, they would have been integrated and they would have done like everybody else, in my opinion.
Yeah, but it's also like different. It's still like it's not like a proper Battle Pass system. It's more tied to mechs themselves, so you can't like have like a season like other games do. You know, where like certain things are released.
I'm glad we have it this way. I don't think it's wrong. Yeah. I'm just not going to give them the benefit of the doubt on that. I think there was just limitations, and also it's not a real Battle Pass. I mean, come on.
Yeah, like, that's the thing. It's not like a real quote unquote Battle Pass system.
Here we have these legendaries that used to be able to buy heroes and just get everything all at once. Now you have to grind to get it. Ooh, do you like that? You get to work for it, and you feel more motivated, right? But you still give us the money up front, right? Like, yeah. And oh, don't worry, if you don't grind and do all that, don't worry, it's still there for you to grind later if you really want that Warhorn that you already paid for.
Like in other games, it's
that's
just
what
like
I'm saying.
Not time limited here.
It's
that's the thing.
It is what it is. They're not your friends.
We definitely like saying that a lot. It is what it is. Right?
They're not your friends. You are the product. Understand you're the product. And so I think this just leaves us here with just more questions than answers right now. I can't tell you. Going into this at the very beginning, I was like, oh, we're fucked. And then he tweets this and it's like, well, are we fucked? What does this mean? He's like, we got to sit down and have a long conversation. It's like, okay, like, I don't,
It depends on the performance of like upcoming DLCs. It depends if PGI has something else cooking. Maybe they have like some idea that they can like deliver. Like
what would sell really well, Magic? For me, I'd play it. You know what it'd be? Take Slay the Spire, that type of game, make a BattleTech of it. Fuck, dude, it'd be so good. Here's my problem being a BattleTech nerd, dude.
Whatever game he's playing.
Yes, I'm like this Darkest Dungeon. Imagine a Darkest Dungeon style.
Just make it BattleTech,
dude. A Slay the Spire BattleTech would be so
just make
good.
it BattleTech. You see this successful game.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
It's so funny.
Like,
it's so funny. I don't know, like it was kind of like a similar argument with Helldivers. You see Helldivers, just make it BattleTech. You see Titanfall, just
But
make
we
it
need to get him to
BattleTech,
play
you
a
know?
battle royale game, so you can be like, "Oh man, a BattleTech version of this would be
You
great."
see
guys.
Apex Legends, make it BattleTech. Easy. All right. Nah, it's not that like the word easy, but yeah. I get
Slap
where
next
he's
Sonic
coming
guys, that'll be
from, but
great.
like ultimately, it does not depend that if the game is BattleTech or not. It depends if it's a good game or is it not a good game. That's it. And I have to repeat this over and over again because so many people think that because the IP is quote unquote niche, you know, then the game cannot be successful because the IP
No.
is limiting it and not the other way around. No, it's not because of the
It gives you a
IP. It's
huge
because of the
universe to
game.
build off of. Like
It's
there's
because
no
of the game.
limitations.
It's because of it. I did say the word. I know I said the word. I think it's important to repeat this until I no longer hear like a similar argument from either like Russ or like some random community members because I keep hearing it over and over again. And it's like incredibly annoying. It annoys me to no end. You have no idea. I just can't help it. I'm sorry, guys. I just can't help it. I get triggered like
I mean,
right away.
MMOs were a niche thing at one point, so like that doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't. It literally doesn't mean anything. But people still make that argument, like, and I see it so often, like repeated, like in various chats, Discord. Like, just go to that like thread on MechWarrior 5 Reddit about the layoffs. Is everyone like, oh, it's like, they're struggling because like you know BattleTech, it's a very niche IP. Shut up. Just shut
Guys,
the hell up.
just hear me out. All right. WoW, but we put BattleTech on it.
Oh my god, what an idea!
Right?
Why do you think like 40K has like an automatic buy? There's so many 40K games that flopped. Like in the meantime, you just don't hear about them. There's like Star Wars games that flopped. You just don't hear about them. Like just because the game has like a Star Wars license attached to it or like a 40K license attached to
yeah.
it doesn't mean like it's going to be successful. Like the Rocket
It's quite
League,
the
just a
opposite.
second. Like the Rocket League. Let me. I need to take a look at like what the game name is. Just give me a second. Just what was the name of that orc like racing game that was like that's like 40K was developed, but like didn't really
The issue
perform that well.
is most
You have like a shit ton of 40K games that flop, that like literally flop,
well, here's the issue though. You have
Faceland
a whole
right at the
lot of
beginning.
you have a
But
whole lot of franchises.
the thing is, what 40K was doing is they were like giving licenses to everyone, and usually Speed Freaks, yes, that's a 40K game. In my opinion, that was like even a more enjoyable game than Rocket League for me, and yet it still flopped. It had like a 40K IP attached to it, and it was not enough. So like IP on its own, it's not enough, but it's also not a deciding factor of if a product is going to succeed or not. Branding can be important, but ultimately, if your game is not good enough or like it doesn't capture the attention, it's not gonna matter in the end. Like your game has to be a good game for the branding to come into the effect of mattering. So yeah.
The ultimate reason why developers pay a license fee is because it gets their game out there to a wider audience that otherwise probably wouldn't have heard of it if it was called, Academy
I know.
XYZ instead of Harry
I
Potter,
know.
the
I know.
Academy. Like,
There is a higher
so
chance that the brand
which
will
is the
help the
reason
game.
why you don't see
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
MechWarrior games is because technically the license isn't really worth anything because no one's doing anything with it outside of games right now.
I mean,
So
but
there's
like you
no
can't
incentive
really
to
say
spend
that like even 40K
portion of your
IP
money on a MechWarrior
was
game.
like that important. Like I can name you like so many like various 40K games, like I said, that flop like instantly. The branding will help you in terms of like discovery. So oh well, there's a new 40K game coming out, and what it is,
Yeah.
and then you see like it's a shitty card game, and like no one plays it. It doesn't really matter. Like ultimately, it doesn't matter. It will help you get some eyes on the game, but for your game to succeed, it really needs to be like a good game
100%.
at its core.
100%. Unless like you literally get like this Omega license where it's like, oh, whatever you put in this game is going to be canon in the universe, and it's again has to be a popular franchise that people would care about that.
Yeah, that is true. And Tori said, and yeah, the IP based games haven't always performed well, but the old publishers are still going to look at a popular IP with wide market appeal as a safer bet, even if it's not actually. I mean, that's true, but then again, like in the case of like 40K, it's not that publishers were approaching like them to get the IP. It was actually developer, like smaller developer studios that were approaching like Games Workshop to get the work on their license. So they would grant them like either a limited access to like a limited license to be able to develop like a certain faction in a certain part of the universe. They wouldn't even grant them the license that covers like the entirety of 40K, but like a certain aspects of it, and then they can start developing for that. And usually they were paying for that license up until the moment when the game was closed. So like a lot of those games, when they stop being profitable, stop bringing in like any profits at all, they just disappear completely off of Steam. And I think like that's also by design by Games Workshop.
Dead by Daylight, I feel like I would love to know how their business model works a lot better, because they like somehow get all these extremely popular licenses to like be like, oh, we can bring Freddy into our game and stuff like that. And it's just like, where are they making the money at off of this? Is it the licenses are just taking a small percentage of whatever characters that they end up selling that use that skin, or how does
I
that
mean, they
work?
don't have to care. Like, even if a game flops, like they still earn money from the license. So, like, I think Games Workshop, like, and I'm not praising Games Workshop, guys. Do not get me wrong. I'm just saying that their idea, uh, behind like subdividing the license and basically giving the license almost to everyone who asks them to get them the license, like, worked out in the end, because you're gonna have like a lot of games that flop and no one remembers them, and then you'll have like certain successes there and that everyone remembers, and oh my god, like this is an amazing like Games Workshop game. Now it's must be like the strong IP, but no, it's just a game that was good.
Did we solve all the problems?
No.
Yep. We've come to a conclusion. They should stop calling it MechWarrior, get their extra 10% and 15, whatever it actually is, and just keep releasing mech themed games that are not MechWarrior, because they're not really. I mean, I was just talking to them about that. Like, what is the purpose of calling your game a MechWarrior game right now? Like, where is the value in that? It's like taking the Hawken brand at this point. Like, there's no like, you can borrow from the universe for storyline aspects, but otherwise, what value is there in it? No one knows what MechWarrior is anymore. You're not expanding out your advertising, demographic as you would when you're selling the game by including MechWarrior in it now.
I think that's a fair argument, but like I said, you would have to develop a good game, and that game would still have to be discovered, by others.
Is
Like
that
the discovery aspect is like problematic, but like
is that
I was
Piranha
just
Games'
like
fault,
before
or
you
is that the
arrived.
IP's fault, or both?
It's not the
I
IP's fault. Well, I mean,
it's not the IP's fault. You can't blame
whenever
the
they
IP for it.
fractured, ever
Yeah.
since they fractured the IP, whatever it's done, it doesn't matter. It being separated means that you can't have any big things come in, like make a new MechWarrior movie or show or anything out of it, because it's just too much of a hassle to figure all that stuff out now.
Well, BattleTech's still strong as far as tabletop and the lore aspect of it. That can go on
It's
definitely. That's strong.
still, I don't know if I call it strong, like compared to 40K. What is it though?
It's the
Like,
second
it's
biggest tabletop of the world.
over any card game. I'm guessing you're leaving out.
Tabletop. That's all. I mean, I think if you're,
I mean, all the card games are tabletop.
well, does Wiseman have the rights to MechWarrior? No. We talked about that earlier.
Because like even the Magic the Gathering is falling off, and I would say that's up there as far as tabletop games go.
Yeah,
And
Corey,
it's
but
still,
in a way, there's still a really good relationship between Catalyst and Piranha. So, like, I don't know. I mean, granted, they have to have their designs separate for a reason legally, but like,
I mean, that's understandable. We were just talking about the whole because I keep seeing the aspects and like people blaming the IP for like a success or
The
failure
IP
of like a
is,
certain game.
yeah, I don't
Not
think the
really.
IP is doing anything for PGI.
I don't think. Yeah, it's not to blame one way or the other. It's
You
really
don't
just not to
think
blame one
the
way or the other.
MechWarrior has been the golden calf for PGI? Is it, what do you?
Uh, I don't. I think it's handicapping them more than anything else. Like it is a literal siphon on their funds, and
In the sense of
like,
what?
well, they have to pay a percentage. We don't know what
Oh,
that percentage
yeah,
is out, that is coming straight out of money that would have been their profit to
sure.
someone else. And what are they gaining in return for it? Like literally just people that know the MechWarrior title, which is getting older and older. The audience for that, like it's there's no new blood coming in that's like, oh yeah, I heard about MechWarrior. I want to go find more MechWarrior games.
Well, that's why I asked
Like
Improvise on the podcast. You know, he's 26. He doesn't have any buddies
that's
that play.
literally the reason why you license.
But he kind of
Developers
said it
pay
to
to
you as well.
license a
He was
game.
not familiar. He was not familiar with the MechWarrior at all, and he still played like MechWarrior Online because he found to like the game.
No.
Like how many people were familiar with Helldivers before they started playing like with Helldivers 1 or like with the Helldivers universe at all? No one was really. Like coming into Helldivers 2. No one cared. Like it's not the thing. It's not the thing that like it helps the game with discoverability because you have the existing fan base that maybe not even in the gaming aspect, maybe like in the like in a tabletop aspect that's going to be familiar with the product. Like, but it's not the thing that's going to carry the game. It's not the thing that's going to
Me?
like kill the game essentially.
Hold on, I gotta chime in. Me, I totally disagree. MechWarrior has always been a skin shooter. What are you talking about? Mech 3 wasn't the same. Mech 4 was the same. Anytime someone brings up that comment, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, Mech, I don't. It's like when you make statements like that, I'm like, what are you talking about?
In order to make that statement, you would have to define like what is like quote unquote that core aspect that a MechWarrior game needs to have.
Every MechWarrior has had it.
Like just a second, like that in order to be classified like as a quote unquote MechWarrior game, you know.
They've all had exactly the same shit. What do you like? Now, if you say the game modes, yeah, but that game modes don't make a MechWarrior. You know. Oh, you meant BattleTech?
Which is another place where we can come into like where MechWarrior is probably screwing over PGI because they have to stay true to the lore, quote unquote, and make all these silly balance decisions on weapon systems that are just not good for gameplay
I push
as a
back
whole.
on you, Meta. No, I think it takes a creative designer to come along and can work within some guidelines, but come up with their own stuff. I've said that before. Same thing with like HPS. I think HPS did a good job on some things, but you know they an AC-20 isn't 20 damage in that game. You know they made changes.
Yeah,
I think it's just knowing and having creative.
If you're making like a top-down action-based game, then you have to guide your design decisions like to make it for a good, enjoyable
Also,
action-based game.
Let's be real here. Piranha Games is here because of the IP. Prove me wrong on that one.
If they called it
no,
instead of MechWarrior.
Yeah, I think Meta is bringing up a good point. Like if they called it like differently, I do think like in the case of like PGI, not having the IP behind them like would hurt them.
Sure, but okay, so are they going to pull an Activision though and go make last time we saw this happen, Activision lost the IP, the license after 2, and then we had what? Heavy Gear. Activision created Heavy Gear. Is that what Piranha Games? How many of you would jump aboard another, like their own spin-off,
You know what's funny? I think if it was successful enough, people would. But like, I don't think PGI has it like in themselves to develop like such an exceptionally like good game for it to like get that level of success.
But
I
I
wish
mean-
I could say it like differently, but
Yeah,
no.
yeah, no, I might agree with you there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys, you keep wording the use successful. I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation if that, like, any of this, like, hit that, like, what that means. It's like, to broaden the audience, right? To expand the community, to bring in a large influx. Some people, by the way, don't want that, which is funny because the reason I say this is you see what's going on with BattleTech, the tabletop and some of the changes, and they're like, you see what happens when you bring a large, and you're like, some people just want to see the status quo. They don't care about it. Don't touch my shit, sort of thing. But here's the question, Magic. What would do that? What, like, regardless of the IP, is a mech genre game?
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's just a skin.
Yeah. Well, do you think PGI?
Like,
I mean,
I think people don't understand it. It's just a skin. It's just a freaking skin.
no. What I'm saying is, if PGI has not met what you think of success is, so what if they had their own IP? Do you think they could pull it off then? Like, do you think the IP is really limiting them being creative and coming out with something?
Given their current track record of like just game design decisions, I would say no, they would not be able to pull that off.
Agreed. So
if it was a different studio, then my answer could have been like very different. But like, I don't think PGI specifically can do it, can pull it off.
So then the only solution is what? Or few solutions, I guess.
Get better at designing games.
That's fair.
Whatever
we go
you're
into
designing.
stasis and wait for someone else to take up the reign.
But I don't. Yeah, everybody says that. Like, oh, I hope they go away. Remember?
I'm not saying go away.
No.
I'm just saying we gotta wait for someone else to come.
Do you remember Darren's response used to be all the time? Basically, there's no one there. You guys keep saying all these things. You want PGI to go away, and this is what sucks. Is like, it's like that's where this scarcity mentality comes back. Of like,
was there, man. Titanfall was there. They had it.
Titanfall. Nah. You know what?
Titanfall 2 was done dirty. People need to understand that like EA released a game in between like a Battlefield 1 and like another Call of Duty like I think it was not Modern Warfare, that like future wall running like title as well. It basically squeezed it in between like two very popular games. So people have to spend like $60 on like a Battlefield game, $60
their studio
on that,
has
like,
the creativity, like
on that COD game, and then like $60 on the Titanfall. So people like usually by inertia chose like Battlefield, or they chose COD if they were kind of leaning towards it, and they didn't choose like Titanfall 2. But like by every other like critic reception, like player reception, like Titanfall 2 was an exceptional game. It's just the timing, like when they released it, like squeezed it so much like life out of that game that like it wasn't able but to stretch its feet. But the thing with Titanfall is many of the other games that were released back at that time were like dead when Titanfall 2 was also like hanging around, and like you had so many like new player influxes, like when it was being sold for $5 on Steam, that it was kind of crazy. It was getting some like really crazy numbers.
Well,
so it just kind of goes to show that it was a good game, but just like the mistakes of Titanfall 2 were like different.
But also
from mistakes of like
you're bringing
that
up
PGI
that
was making.
Some of these bigger studios have the leeway of failure, and they just eat the cost. Like, that is what it is, and then they're rolling to something next. When you're
I mean, a lot of the bigger studios would go out of their way to develop like 10 different products, and if like 9 of them fail, and one of them is like a money bringer in terms of like a live action service, they're completely fine with that calculation. Like, they're completely fine with that. That's why you see so many like I wouldn't say Concords, but like you have like a gazillion different like hero shooters being released over and over again by like bigger studio, and like that game failing is not the end of the world as long as they have like some other games succeed. like even if like vast amount of money are like spent working on it. They just need like one game to succeed.
It's the which one is it going to be, and can we do it?
In terms of like, what do you mean?
No, I just mean that's what the hope of any studio is, that they can find
Like
success in one.
when you're an independent studio, then you can't really afford to do that stuff that the big boys are doing. You know,
You gotta
throw
play
like
safe.
so much stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Like if you're like an indie studio, then the calculation is like very different. You have
Even
to
that's going away.
make whatever you're working on succeed, because you might not get another chance, or you might not even have the funding to branch out and try out something different.
Like AAA industry is dead. Like now they're saying like, oh, AA industry is where it's at, whatever that means.
Well, you
I
said
mean,
this,
yeah,
Matt.
because they're seeing like successful indie titles like actually bringing in more revenue than so much of their like AAA shit that they're throwing at the wall. So they're like, oh yeah, it's the AA. But then again, you see a lot of like titles in the AA industry that kind of fail, kind of, you know, like just flop as well. So like I don't think that's the case. Like ultimately it comes down, and I keep repeating myself over and over again, designing a good game. Can you design a good game, or can you not design a good game? Designing an okay game is sometimes just not enough. And in order to design like a good game, you need developers that are open to feedback. You need developers that have a clear goal of what they want to do. That are ready to allow others to poke holes into their like you know, decisions about like the game design. But not everyone is like that. You know, some people are just born thinking that they know the best. Like that's how it is, and they don't want to like hear any outside feedback, regardless of like what they're doing.
Yeah, I think what's
PG Games.
tough
Sorry,
is
go ahead.
if you were to
For so long,
ask,
the answer's just been like literally, oh, what's good? And we'll just take that and then throw another thing that was good on it and combine those things. Now
well,
everything's just a hodgepodge of
look at
the exact
MechWarrior.
same thing.
Ask poll 1,000 MechWarrior fans. You're gonna get that. Like, you may get some crossover, but some people don't give a shit about online play. Some people want, single player only. I think that's also a dilemma.
Fine.
You know,
But that every time you
But
do
I don't
that,
think
though,
it's a
it
dilemma. It's
increases
like a
the
dilemma of
cost.
designing like a good single player game or designing like a good multiplayer game. That's the real thing. It's not really like, if I'm going to design like a single player game, does that mean like my game is going to be more successful? Or like if I'm going to design a multiplayer game, does that mean like my game is going
that
to
was
be
your
successful?
critique of
No.
Russ back in the day when he said the N word, right?
It still remains.
Yeah, that's
it still
you.
remains
You were like,
true.
just make a good game, and you don't have to worry about like it doesn't matter about it being
Can you make a good arcade game? Yes. Can you make a good sim game? Yes. You just make a good game. Like if you're trying to make a sim game, then try to make it like a good sim game. You know, that's kind of it.
Chat. Don't you dare
But
say
like,
the N word.
don't say it. But that's kind of the rough thing. Like when you're trying, like you can even have a certain degree of leeway. Like you don't have to make it like a really like extreme sim game or whatever. You kind of have, but you still have to stick with some core aspects of it and not like go to the other direction like so much that it stops being what it needs to be. Like for example, like why do we have so much like RNG in MechWarrior Online? Was like RNG ever needed like for the crit system in MechWarrior Online? Not really, but we still have it for some reason. Like there was no reason to include it. It's just a bad thing. It doesn't need to exist, but it exists. Like that's one example of like a game design decision that was like completely unnecessary. Same goes for people that want to include like tabletop aspects like into a FPS game. You just do not do that. Like you see how like what kind of impact that's going to make on an FPS game, and like what may be fine in a top-down RTS or like like an XCOM type game might not be fine like in an FPS game. So like if you're trying to design like a good FPS game, then you have to like look at the FPS like aspects of it and make sure that everything like fits in nicely. Just no. Okay.
Hey,
I'm leaving.
stop it, Bill. Stop it.
I'm leaving. Anyway, I have to
No.
go prepare myself something for dinner. Good talk. Anyway, see you guys
What?
later.
Oh my goodness.
We're fine.
I have
Everything's
to go.
fine.
You're banning us
It's
now.
all
It's only
fine.
like an hour left, man. Stick around.
He almost said it. He
Mm,
said
mm.
he typed like a different letter in the end, but yeah, that's it. Anyway, good talk, Will. I think we're gonna see like what develops like in the coming days, and I think we might get some additional info.
Sonic,
Yeah. See
thank you for
y'all in 10 years, guys.
EG7, just to say before I go, EG7 might release a statement not too far from now. We're not gonna get like a financial presentation like for another 4 to 6
you're saying
weeks,
about
so
the
we'll have to wait.
layoffs or just the
About
financial
the
impacts.
layoffs,
Yeah.
I think about they're going to release a statement sometime soon, so people
And
pay
by the way,
attention to
PGI is
like
not the only
EG7.
studio. They're doing this across the board, I think. So it's not like
I'll have to take a look. Like they're probably gonna release the statement sometimes in the next week, so we'll see like what their reasoning for it was at least.
yeah, they're trying to get it
I
under
keep on seeing
control.
that economic. What was the word they used?
Restructuring.
Yeah, restructuring. That one keeps
That's a nice
popping up
one.
a lot.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. We're just restructuring.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Restructuring, you know, this or that. Also, Sonic Saber, thank you for the 20 months. Also got you added to the number over there, the Operation Mech Bro. Thanks, man. We are close to 100. Well, thank you, Magic, for your time and patience.
No problem.
And
you baited me into doing this.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Anyway, all right. See you guys later. Bye.
Later, man. And yeah, that was a pretty good podcast. Just saying. It's my, you know. That's right. That's right. You can say it now, guys. You can say the N word now that he's not here.
Dang. Bill is just milking him for content. You're a publisher in secret, aren't you, sir?
Look, you got to do it, you know. Let's go, Jen. It's all, you got to get, you know, the content. It's that, you know, hot takes and gotcha moments. And,
yeah.
You know,
all we need is a MechWarrior reality show now.
Oh, man. MechWarrior Island, you know.
That'll get the bucks rolling in.
Yeah.
MechWarrior reality, man.
Yeah.
MechWarrior survival. Oh man, we can do so many MechWarrior things.
Dude, it's tough, man, because like I said, he with his comments, it was sort of like and he did reply, you know. He's basically saying like the license extended, and then he's like, well, it would take more to answer that question. It's not really due for a
I saw a lot of look on the bright side of life stuff, but in reality, we all know what it is.
Well, I think it's like I think what Russ is alluding to is it's complicated.
I mean, it always is.
All right. I think the complication
at the end
is,
of the day, is it a good or a bad thing? We know which way it's leaning.
If he had something, well, here's the thing. We know one thing for certain. If it was super positive, he'd be like, don't worry, you know, blah, blah, blah. I mean, and sort of he did that in a ways, you know, it's like, we're still doing DLCs, but it's like, well, are you still doing MechWarrior in the future? He's like, well, we did get an extension and Microsoft has been great. It's like, but a future is like, well, that would require a longer form than just a tweet. And it's like, okay, you know, it's like, what is...
I mean, compared to the alternative, which is the studio closes, it's a great thing. Yay.
Well, and to be honest, that could happen, but...
not anytime soon.
Well, yeah, not anytime soon. I think PGI
as long as they're being, you know, in the black,
they're still positive.
We'll continue on this with a more and more lean force and less ideas within the company to ever improve said series.
Yeah, rampancy. Yeah, that's 100%, man. Yeah, Canadian. We don't know all the ins and outs, so I can't really say that or not. We, you know, robot jocks. All right, I had a PB&J, a yogurt, and a beef stick. That's what I just had for lunch. I need a drink though.
I don't know. It's like a lot of things. There was clearly a giant bubble that occurred during COVID in gaming, and then sort of there's a obvious fall off that's required after that, and corrections were made, and then apparently those corrections were not made strongly enough. And then you have the ongoing issue in my opinion, with PGI leadership, which is they don't learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, detox. Yeah, I guess we'll find out here.
But I can't be one to really, critique their leadership because I'm not one over here to throw my money around to release anything. So,
well, and also too is
they
like
can do what they want, but at the same time, I can still say, hey, I don't think you're going in the right direction with anything.
Yeah, you don't have the 60 however many employees, shoulders, and families, depending on like.
Right.
If you make a bad decision, they're all being laid off and their families, are being impacted. Like that's another thing I think sometimes is like,
you have to have a certain mentality to run a business. I don't have that, and I don't think he has. I wouldn't say the correct mentality to do it, but he has a very strong mentality where he doesn't seem to learn from mistakes made previously, as far as specifically.
Some of those people aren't there anymore, so maybe
Like I said, I don't know who is making the decisions in like the past 5 years because I can never get an answer.
Meta, it's AI. That's who. That's exactly
from
who.
Before AI.
No, they've been running the show the entire time.
Well, if that's the case, they need better AI for their game because their AI sucks.
See, then we need to pump more money into it. See, you just answered,
I mean, Tori did say they're improving the AI, so maybe that means an improvement in the series as a whole. Then,
I rest my case. Needs more GPU power.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go grab some drink.
Tori still around?
I think so. Maybe Tori, you all right?
I want to know one thing more than anything with the AI. Their stupid RNG code on if they hit you or miss you, because the beam weapons that are like can't hit a barn door or lock on to a single bolt on your mech is the most annoying.
You know what I'd
aspect
rather
of that
ask
whole
them?
thing in Clans.
Obviously, the differences that are coming, I'd like to see before and after. That's the problem. Is like they're like, "Hey, AI is improved," whereas on the surface, we're like,
well, I mean, it's in the code. They can't show you that, sir.
But they can show like a distinct behavior between one. You'd see that.
Like that's what was Russ's answer? It's a much bigger topic that can't be answered in this medium, sir.
The other thing would be, Tori, if you could design a system from the ground up, what would it do?